Maverick News presents The Rick Walker Show. Defrag your mind.
Hey everybody, I'm Rick Walker. Welcome to the Maverick News channel. This is stream number 2. We're going to dip into our ongoing live coverage of the inquiry into the use of the Emergencies Act. Right now, we're live there. We're joining up with our other stream, and as soon as it wraps up, which should be very shortly, wraps up for the day, our regular program, our regular news program will begin. So without further ado, let me just, as I say, bring up the coverage, live streaming now from Ottawa. Here we go. I'll be back with our regular news program as soon as we wrap up here.
Thank you very much for your time and have a good evening. And thank you, Commissioner, for allowing me a few extra moments.
Okay, thank you. Next is the Government of Canada, please.
Good evening, Ms. Thomas.
Good evening.
Donnery Nygaard for the Government of Canada. I want to start out by asking you about something one of my friends asked. The Council for OPS put to you that the convoy participants in Ottawa wanted just one thing to be heard. What was your understanding of what the convoy participants wanted?
They wanted all mandates removed. And they were going to stay in Ottawa until they were removed. And there was an element of the convoy that wanted the Prime Minister removed and a proxy government formed.
Thank you. We haven't spent any time today, and I'd like to spend a little bit of time discussing your role coordinating the response of the federal government to the events that were occurring in Ottawa and across the country. So can you describe to the Commissioner what role you played there and what the federal government was doing in that regard?
Thank you. So as it has been said in my interview summary and in our institutional report, PCO has that central coordinating function for the Government of Canada on a number of issues, on just about every issue that goes through to Cabinet. We play a coordination function, we have a challenge function, and when there is a crisis, and this has been for as long as the position has existed, the NSIA on this kind of a crisis plays a lead role. Much of the organization of meetings and documentation and briefing to ministers was organized by Jackie Bogdan, who's the new Deputy Secretary for Emergency Management at PCO. But what we did was bring colleagues together with their experts to discuss and try to understand how the federal government could assist in the resolution of not only the blockade here in Ottawa, but the various convoys that were occurring across the country. Because we've talked a lot about Ottawa today, but we haven't talked as much about the Ambassador Bridge. We certainly haven't talked about Coots, and then the continual pop-up convoys that were happening over this period in time. We used the forum of DMOC, which you have heard that acronym, to bring together the lead agencies, and we added additional departments. For example, the Deputy Minister of Justice joined us for many of our discussions. And because PCO was so very involved at every level in terms of the management of the national crises, I invited other deputy secretaries to come to DMOC, and certainly the clerk and the deputy clerk had a standing invitation. We wanted to have as broad a view as we could of what was going on and why it was happening, and how the federal government could use existing authorities and resources to respond. You've heard the discussion of the tow truck strategy. Well, that came out of discussions at DMOC. The work that Deputy Minister Stewart was leading on engagement, that came to DMOC for original discussion before it went to Cabinet. But that was where we brainstormed, aired ideas, and assigned tasks to various people and departments and PCO to follow up. Most of the work was tasked from DMOC down into ADM and SOPs, and they went off and engaged because ADMs are that engine that do that level of work. We briefed ministers almost daily, the core group of ministers. We did have formal cabinet meetings, as you've seen, the Safety, Security, and Emergency Management Committee, Canada and the World. We used Canada and the World because there was already a scheduled meeting to discuss Ukraine. The right group of ministers were there, so we briefed this as well. We had briefings to the Prime Minister, and then the IRG was invoked. And the full cabinet meetings leading up in between SSE, Canada and the World, and the IRG were also the vehicle to get information to the Prime Minister. We tried to be very methodical in how we tracked what was on the table to review, to pursue, to engage with provincial and municipal colleagues on, and that was the trackers that you've seen in the evidence that developed out of there. So I did not tell any deputy minister what they should do, nor what they should not do. We'd agree on courses of action, what ministers were going to be briefed, how we were going to engage ministers in the plans to try and use federal authorities and work with provincial authorities to resolve individual situations. But it is a coordination group where we talk, we discuss operational issues, and each department goes back and does their own thing and reports back in. And it's a relatively effective use of time and energy. And it became every day going through department by department. Yesterday you said this, what's changed? What are you doing tomorrow? Where are we?
And what were you telling the deputy minister community in those meetings about what their approach should be to looking at this issue?
Well, I would like to take credit, but it's the clerk of the Privy Council who actually told the community that when you're in the security environment, you get used to crises and you get used to protests and you get used to reading online threats, those kinds of things. She wanted us to think differently and think more broadly and to understand this situation, although it was acknowledged by the security deputy ministers, was unique in terms of its expanse across the country. But there was a thread across all of the incidents that said something, and that we needed to look at it from that perspective as well as the individual resolution of problems. Yes, the tow truck strategy as an example was very, very important, but there was a bigger, broader role for the federal government, and we needed to look at that.
And this was happening in DMOC, and at the same time, there were the SSEs at the beginning of the process that were continuing. So what's the relationship between those two?
There isn't a relationship other than most of the deputy ministers at DMOC, their ministers are members of the SSE committee. And so there was a one-to-one briefing from the deputies to their ministers. Ministers would go and prepare to SSE.
So the work that was being done by the deputy minister community through DMOC to try and find solutions to this problem, when did that stop?
DMOC? It didn't stop.
So I guess the point I'm getting at, on the 10th of February, when it moved from SSE to the IRG and the track 1 and the track 2 was put in place, what was the deputy minister community working on at that point?
So it just, the moving to the IRG brought a focus from the Prime Minister, and it was very directive of what are you doing, Transport Canada, Minister Algabra, work with your provincial colleagues to achieve X, Y, and Z, and that became the tracker. So track 1 was anything we could do under existing legislation and with existing tools, and track 2 became what new could you use to help resolve this?
So when you moved to the track 1 and track 2, the deputy minister community was still working on the issues in track 1. What could you do to resolve with the existing authorities? Is that
absolutely
correct? And that continued on from February 10th until,
Till revocation.
and you spoke to my friend for the city of Windsor about your discussion with Homeland Security in the United States. Can you tell us a little bit more about that?
The Deputy Homeland Security, Deputy NSA for Homeland Security is Liz Sherwood Randall. She reached out to me to say, we have a concern about the Ambassador Bridge. You've heard that concern from others. She said nothing different than what has already been heard. The president had been hearing from auto companies. He'd been hearing from governors. What was the situation? What could I tell her? And how could they help?
So fair to say that they were expressing considerable concern about the situation?
Absolutely concerned, but no pressure. They'd experienced their own protests. They knew they were complex. Could we learn from their experiences, and could we keep them informed? And as we were working through this, and if they could help in any way, they would.
So when we get to the period of February 13th and 14th, and you've talked about your role in coordinating the information that's coming from the various intelligence communities within the federal government and pulling that all together to provide advice to the Prime Minister. In the period February 13th and 14th, what was your assessment of the situation that was going on across Canada at that point?
My assessment was that this was an entrenched movement, that the convoys were feeding off of each other, that they were causing significant economic instability, that the violent rhetoric was increasing rapidly and exponentially, that the number of threats against public figures were increasing, that we were seeing, I don't know if I've said this, seeing increased IMVE rhetoric that was concerning. Our concern on that front is not that any of the organizers of these various groups were going to take action themselves, but they were going to inspire a lone wolf. And our experience in Canada is that of the injuries and deaths that have been caused by ideologically motivated individuals, none of them have been known. They've all been inspired by online movements and rhetoric to do something and to act, and we had profound concern about that. Coutts was a point in time of huge concern because we'd been told there were weapons found in Coutts. I can't say that anybody was surprised there were weapons. We expected weapons to show up in various locations or anticipated that they could, but that it was of the magnitude that it was a significant concern. And the same language was being used in Ottawa. OPS said there were weapons in some of those rigs. Well, what did that mean? One person had a gun, or that there was another group similar to Coutts? What we didn't know was as significant as what we did know. And we were at the point where we were going into the fourth weekend because we were through the third weekend without resolution. And in fact, it was growing. Ambassador Bridge, yes, moving towards being resolved, but until every single day that new convoys were being formed to take back the bridge, or they were going to take the Peace Bridge, or they were going to do both. That there were convoys coming from across the country to reinforce Ottawa. If that had become violent, and of course we're working on absolute information, and there is no intelligence that says tomorrow there's going to be an attack, but if it had become violent, knowing what we know now, there was not the police on the ground to manage it. And so you have to work in a world where you don't have absolutes and you have to use your best judgment on what to do. And what had to happen was it had to end.
And you've made clear, I think, in your earlier testimony that your view that the Section 2 CSIS Act definition, as applied by CSIS in the context of their particular mandate to investigate and collect information on individuals or groups is very narrow. My understanding,
Yes.
that's your position. And am I understanding what you said correctly in answer to my friend from JCCF's question about this in relation to these events, that your view is that it didn't meet the Section 2 CSIS Act definition as CSIS would apply it in their context?
That's correct.
You were asked by the Commission Council about whether your views were asked at the February 13th IRG regarding whether the Emergency Act should be invoked. And you said that you had indicated yes at that time. Can you tell us why?
For the reasons I described earlier, that if the powers existed in legislation, they were not being used or couldn't be used. And that we needed to take swift and decisive action to bring this national crisis to an end. We needed to compel tow trucks. We needed to have an exclusion zone so that people could no longer join the convoy. And the funding and the logistics chain that supported, particularly in Ottawa, but in other locations as well, the funding was significant. And so we needed to understand the money. And I know that Deputy Minister Sabia explained that earlier today. The combination of the tools that were put into the Emergency Act, time limited, as restrictive as possible, and as transparent as possible, was determined to be by the Governor and Council the most appropriate action to take at that moment in time to end what was going on across the country.
And finally, can you tell us a little bit about how mis and disinformation in the context of the convoy impacted on your decision-making and your advice and your assessments?
So mis and disinformation is a very hot topic. And everybody presumes that the mis and disinformation has to come from foreign sources and be foreign interference. And so there was a question that was discussed at one point about whether, you know, Russia was fomenting the disinformation. The mis and disinformation, it could be said, is at the root of some of this problem of the convoy and the anger about vaccines and mandates and masks. The problem with it is that it occurs in the social media space, and threads pick up on each other and they generate more. And so if you believe misinformation, that's all you're going to see because you search for it and the algorithms feed it to you. We're actually working with social media companies to understand how the algorithms feed mis and disinformation and more significant terrorist information. That's come out of what happened in Christchurch, and it's quite well known, the Christchurch call. Misinformation means that people, and disinformation have one source of information, and it continuously feeds upon each other. We heard misinformation during this hearing when somebody mentioned that they were not going to put DNA altering medication in them. There is no DNA altering medication, but it's believed. And so it made it very difficult to try and build a fact base for health officials, for police officials. There was misinformation during the convoy, for example, that the Prime Minister had signed a letter. He had not, but it circulated through the convoy here in Ottawa like wildfire. Absolutely incorrect, but it became fact for people, and it becomes fact very easily. And that sows some of the seeds of discontent that we have seen.
Thank you. Those are all of my questions.
Thank you. Any reply? No? Okay. For the record, there is none. And okay, well, that's we want to thank you for coming and giving your evidence. You're free to go and enjoy what's left of the evening.
Thank you, sir.
And thank you for your evidence. So we're going to adjourn until tomorrow morning at 9:30. I expect it will be another long day, but it's Friday, so we can look forward to a weekend, some of us.
The commission is adjourned. La commission est adjournée.
Okay, guys, I'm here. Sorry for the delay getting over here. Just took me a minute. I need to get things kind of configured. I have a lot of tabs, a lot of windows open here. I can take that feed down now. And I can take this one down as well so that I don't have feedback in my head. That's much better. Okay, let's take a short break here. First, I'm going to pull down this this super, and we're going to start the next phase of our broadcast day, which is now our broadcast night. Going late again today. It's 7:24 p.m. Eastern Time. I'll be right back. Do not touch that dial.
Maverick News. Fighting for freedom.
The New World Order. Government overreach. The Great Reset. Mainstream media lies. Now more than ever, independent voices are needed. Donate now at freedomreporters.com. That's freedomreporters.com. Maverick News. The antivirus program for your mind.
Okay, so I have a lot of stories that I want to cover tonight. I do want to get to the phones as well because I know that a lot of people probably want to comment on what we just saw with Justin Trudeau's personal security advisor, who says there was continual violence in Ottawa during the Freedom Convoy. We have information about Chrystia Freeland and what she was looking for. We have, with respect to security and the convoy, and documents released to the commission. Also, Pierre Poilievre hammering the Liberal government again today, saying the Prime Minister should have called for an investigation into Chinese meddling in our political process, our electoral process. This on the heels of revelations from the Canadian Security Intelligence Service saying that there are politicians taking money from the Chinese Communist Party. A new survey says the majority of people are opposed to drag queen story time. That's a Rasmussen poll. We have info on that. And we have more reaction to that missile strike in Poland. The big question here is, was Zelensky lying in an attempt to drag us all into a full-blown third world war? Nancy Pelosi is out. Hospital reforms are in Alberta, where the new premier held a news conference today. And in Ontario, they're talking about the money they're injecting into the healthcare system in response to growing concerns about surges in COVID, flu, and RSV cases. which is fueling more stories about those things they're referring to as a triple-demic, and pushing more and more people to wear masks and demand mask mandates come back, at least some of those people on the left side of the political spectrum. We also have a video lined up talking about MAID, medical assistance in dying. And I have a video to show that this inquiry, I think, into the use of the Emergencies Act is helping. People are wondering if it's worthwhile. I'm going to show you at least one way that it is having a positive impact. But before we get to all of that, and I'm going to tear through that stuff as quickly as I can very shortly, but before we get to that, we're going to go to the phones so you guys can join the conversation, because I know you want to do that. You want to talk about this inquiry. So stay with me. We're on a couple of short little transitions here, and then you get to exercise your right to free speech.
We are Mavericks. We say no to the Trudeau and Biden New World Order. And to bugs. Because bugs are creepy and gross. And people should not eat bugs. Maverick News. The world is watching.
The New World Order. Government overreach. The Great Reset. Mainstream media lies. Now more than ever, independent voices are needed. Donate now at freedomreporters.com. That's freedomreporters.com. Maverick News. The antivirus program for your mind.
I'm back, and we're ready to go with the phones. Here's the phone number to call.
Join the conversation. Call 1-833-975-3733. That's 1-833-975. Free. Speak up. Speak out. Make your voice heard. Maverick News. Fighting for freedom by defending your right to free speech. Be a Maverick. Join us.
Okay, ladies and gents, call now at 1-833-975-3733. That's 1-833-975-3733. First up on the list tonight, Cindy. Hello, Cindy.
Hello, Rick.
How are you tonight?
Good. How are you? I'm glad. Much better.
Thank you. I appreciate that. Where do you want to start?
With the intelligence officer, I love how Brendan Miller always kind of gets the truth out, and he's a little bit hard on them.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And but he's good. I really like him. They call him Miller time, I guess, from what I'm seeing online.
Yep, it's Miller time.
It's Miller time, and I just love it when he goes up, because he just, you know, he's strong and he's firm and he's confident, and I really like his proceedings with the people on the stand.
Yeah.
As far as that intelligence officer goes, I think she has the wrong title for the prime minister.
What do you think it should be?
Well, sometimes titles can go to people's heads, and I think that she thinks maybe she's something more than she is too.
Yeah, I kind of got that impression too. I felt like she's in the process of building her own little security empire. She wants more tools at her disposal. She wants to actually engage in more intelligence collection. She sees there's a gap in the system. She's going to fill that in.
Well,
and,
I seen there was a gap in the system too, where she was concerned. There was a gap in her mind, is what I seen as to what her job is. And therefore, I understand she's to be there maybe to protect the prime minister or whatever. But as far as looking at rhetoric online and looking at threats online, I mean, there's threats online every day. There's high school threats. There's elementary threats. There's threats online, millions and millions every day. Not to say that they shouldn't be taken serious, because yes, every threat is serious, but that's out of her league.
Not only that, well, I think you've actually kind of said it, but I'm certain I could go online right now and somewhere find someone threatening the prime minister with violence, and maybe worse. A lot of people don't like him. Any day of the week, and 24/7, 365, I'm sure you could find it out there. And if that's the threshold for invoking the Emergencies Act, then I guess we should have it in perpetuity. And I'm not trying to downplay threats like you, but that's the reality of it, of the social media situation, right?
That's right. And I'm with you. And I don't know. I don't know what she was trying to portray. She was speaking in circles, and all Brendan was trying to do was get the truth out of her, but she kept talking around till finally he was just flustered and left. But I think he did get a lot out of her.
Yeah. Well, they know that he's a big threat to them, and their strategy is to waste time, because at an inquiry, it's not like a trial. There's a time limit. You can't just sit there and keep asking questions. So you get 10 minutes.
Yes, absolutely. And even the last government lawyer that went up was questioning her position as well.
Yeah. Yeah. And I'd like to know what her real qualifications are, really.
Well, that's what I was wondering. Where did she come from? And she has no policing background to be called an intelligence officer or whatever she was, trying to portray she is. I think that it's totally the wrong title. That she might be another marionette of Trudeau.
Yeah, well, not to throw her credibility into question, but let's not forget that 50% of everyone around Trudeau when he took office was female for the first time ever, right? Because it was, what was it? What year was that? Well, it's 2022 now, so I'll just say because it's 2022. That's her qualifications.
Yeah. Absolutely. But I would like to know her background, and maybe we could Google that. Hopefully we don't threaten anybody by doing that.
Well, the word threat, there you go. That's how you qualify for a position with Trudeau. You just can't be too qualified, because then you might be a threat to him.
Well, the whole convoy should have worked for Trudeau, because we were all threats.
Yes, I guess so. Oh my.
The violence and everything. And we were there. My husband and I were there. And, different weekends, each employee of his trucking company, we went down, and it was absolutely wonderful. We were there the first weekend where we seen the oodles and oodles of people on the bridges and all over. And, you know, to go from Sudbury to Ottawa, it was like a 10-hour trip, and it should only been a 6-hour, but you didn't mind because it was so beautiful and exhilarating, and just to hear people's stories, and it was wonderful.
Yeah, you
And
know, what did you make of her comment where she said that there was continual violence on the streets during the Freedom Convoy?
This might sound like a threat, but I wanted to go through the TV and shake her head for her and say, what are you talking about?
Unbelievable, eh? I just, I don't know, man.
I just have to roll my eyes.
I think we live in an alternate universe, right? Like, I don't see things like they see things. They're either completely lying or delusional, or it's like, you know what I mean? It's like everything is just.
At one point, when somebody was drilling her, I wanted to say, remember, you're under oath.
Right. Yes, very good point. What is your?
She was a little smug herself.
Yeah. Like, what is your truth, right? I just
very interesting.
Yeah.
She did definitely feel the heat.
She did today. Yeah, she felt the heat. That's for sure.
But I'm glad they brought up the document and made her read what her position actually was.
Brendan Miller is great. He really is good. If I get in trouble, he's my man. Yeah.
Oh, I'd love to meet him. He's just great. I think he's a very young man. I think he's only about 37 years old, but I just love him.
Superstar. That's what he is. I'll tell you. And whatever you have to pay him to represent you, worth every penny. So
I don't drink beer, but I would definitely do a Miller time.
Yeah, me too. Yeah, he's fantastic. Well, listen, we've got a lot of calls lined up, so we better jump off and move on here. I got a lot of people on the line tonight. So
thank you, Rick. Glad to see that beautiful smile again.
Thank you. You have a great night. Thanks for calling.
Take care.
Okay, let's go to Corey. Lots of people tonight. Hello, how are you? Is Corey there?
Hello.
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 You're on the air.
Oh, it's Kimberly.
Oh, Kimberly. This system.
From the Gorey, northern Quebec. What I want to say is, they said weapons.
Yeah.
They found weapons. Not you, I realize you realize, but are they all in glass houses? All people. I have a shovel, a weapon, and actually more than that in my back seat in case I get stuck in the snow. Are they really that far up on that glass house that everybody, probably not that lives in cities, but if you're traveling, you have a weapon on you just in case something happens with an animal or go say government, but I won't. But it's ironic that they say they found weapons. Of course they did. People traveling from way up in Winnipeg, Vancouver, whatnot, of course they're going to have weapons. If they get stuck somewhere and some animal comes, either they're going to cook it, eat it, or shoot it. So I don't get the thing about they found weapons. Of course. And I can guarantee you one thing. If you look at the truckers coming across or going to the States, they will have a weapon in their truck. No?
Well,
I mean, they said they found weapons. Of course they would find
well,
weapons.
they're referring to,
Yes,
there's already been references. I know what they're talking about, and it's this, I guess there's some reference in previous testimony and evidence to some women carrying guns in bags, although there's some question about whether they were actually working for police, and it appears maybe they were. So I'm not sure if weapons on the scene were actually, it's almost like a form of entrapment. I need more information to know what they're talking about. And then they're talking about there's other weapons or guns they found off site at that other location near or in Coots, but not right at the protest site. So that's what they're referring to. And she said today she wasn't really aware of, the quantity and so on. She hadn't been informed at that point. So that's what they're talking about. Now, as for weapons in the trucks and so on, there's been no other evidence of any weapons of any kind found, period. There was never any evidence of weapons found in any of the vehicles in Ottawa. Zero. They refer to it, but repeatedly that has been shown to be not true.
Well, we keep hearing that. We keep hearing people saying the wrong versus the right.
Yeah.
And
well, I'm just telling you, just to save a lot of time, and I've got a lot of callers here, we got to move on. But no weapons were found in Ottawa. Period. That is a fact, an absolute fact, acknowledged by police. Even though they dance around it, they have acknowledged that. Zero weapons in Ottawa. The only weapons are the ones that I've already previously mentioned in Coots.
But it was said by her today they found weapons.
In Coots. Not in Ottawa. They were worried about weapons. They allude to it. They try to throw the word in there. It's a bunch of bunk. They've acknowledged repeatedly when pushed and questioned on it. Zero weapons found in Ottawa. None. Zero.
You know what?
Zero.
God bless Miller, and God bless you, Maverick. Thank you, because I hate going to the other sites, but once the 8 hours is over, I have to go, and then I try and find you back again.
Yeah.
But let me tell you, I live way up north in Canada. I in Quebec, sorry.
Yeah.
And I am just, it's unbelievable.
Yeah.
I mean, we are paying, and everybody is paying the astronomical amount. And I think, excuse me there, but I think it's propaganda when we're missing things for the Tylenol, everything. I think it's getting back to he needs to pull his big boy pants up, or he needs to be out. But we all know that. So anyway, God bless you, and thanks, guys, for talking with me while we chat on your site. I love some of your people chatting, and they're great people.
They are.
And they're intelligent, more intelligent than the government. That's unbelievable that the government is not that. They lack intelligence.
I hear you. Thank you for your call. Appreciate it. We got to go.
Bye-bye. Thank you, Rick.
Okay, see ya. There you go. Okay, and we got Rudy Bruce next. Thank you for waiting, sir.
Hello, Rick.
What's-
How are you today?
I'm okay. What's shaking, my man?
Well, as I'm trucking across the country, I thought I'd give you my little 2 cents on the commission today.
Mm-hmm.
I sat back and listened to the whole thing, well, most of it today. You know, it's incredible how the corruption is just pouring out of their mouths and they don't even realize it regarding the mistreatment of the people from the government. And that woman, her office isn't even mandated through legislation. You know,
Yeah,
I mean, she's a nobody. She's a
pretty much.
she's just like the next door neighbor. She could come up with her opinion, and because she likes Trudeau or Trudeau likes her, and they both got together and formed a job, well, I'll take your opinion over actual.
Over CSIS intelligence officers who, you know,
Unbelievable.
with the training and the resources.
Unbelievable.
Yeah, she's going to make a broader assessment, even though every police agency that provided intelligence to her gave her information that ran contrary to her ultimate decision.
Yeah. And on top of that, a lot of what she's talking about is in lining with Bill C-11. You know that?
Yeah, that's
Because
true.
they are so out of touch, okay, with the people that they figure the only way to do this is to control them. And that's why Bill C-11. Because they are so out of touch, they're scared.
Yeah.
And they're trying to quell the public as to, you know, listening to the government form of a narrative instead of the people's form of a narrative. I mean, look at it this way, okay? If I take you back a couple of years and when all this COVID thing came out and the way they handled it and the outcry and the damage that it was causing in society was outrageous, okay? And I mean outrageous. I mean, oh, and by the way, I got kicked off of Facebook for 30 more days today.
Congratulations. Good job, my man.
Anyway,
you're a true freedom fighter.
It was over the mask. It was over the mask issue.
Yeah.
When I said,
don't say it,
you know, but
don't
everybody knows,
or we'll get banned. We'll get banned.
No,
too.
but everybody knows it. Everybody knows it,
They know.
right? I don't even have to say it.
You don't have to.
Everybody knows it. And anyway, this woman, I mean, they were asked, on top of that, she was asked, well, did the convoyers reach out to talk to government officials? A number of times that was the case.
Yep.
Even down to asking for the doctors to come to the table with the medical evidence the government had to go through what was reality, what wasn't reality. That was their opportunity. But instead of that, they've got something else up their sleeve, a lot more sinister and a lot more corrupt than the people should be realizing or being able to know the logistics of. So that's why they never came to the table, because their hands were in the cookie jar, breaking the law. Okay? So how could they come to the table when they were in the wrong? And they are totally in the wrong when it comes to having brought out the Emergencies Act. Okay? I mean, like, that woman, I mean, without any credentials or credibility, happens to be sitting and saying, well, I'm the
security. I don't think that woman would know a threat if she saw one coming. You know?
Yeah.
I mean, she's out of touch. She's totally out of touch. Trying to think that, oh, we've got this 30-year gap of unknown, you know, all of a sudden the internet is causing us an enormous problem.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I'm sorry, but the problem didn't come from us. It came from your corrupt government. And that's what the problem is. That's what the problem's been.
Yeah.
Is a corrupt government. And that's where Canadians are voicing their opinions and, you know, expressing their concerns over the many problems that they're having because of the ridiculous mandates, etc. You know, I mean, it was very plain what was there and what was being requested of the government to come to the table.
Yeah.
But instead, the government couldn't come to the table because of its corruptness and had to find alternative ways of making us go away. Well, I'm sorry, but we're not going away. We're just getting started. And I'll tell you, we're going to see what comes out of this commission, because so far I've only seen half-wits and dumbbells on the Prime Minister's side. And, you know, even when she was asked about the level threat, you know, to be on the threshold, she had no clue. Okay, what, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
It was in her mind what a threshold is. Not, oh, this is so outrageous of a government official or office. It's like I mean, somebody's 5-year-old could do just the same job for a lot less money, I'll bet you.
Well,
you know?
as Brett Miller said, why don't they just let the head of CSIS do that job?
Exactly.
I think
exactly.
You know what it is, man? And actually, I'm going to get into some of this within the next night or two, I think. We've got a whole other story we're working on. This kind of ties into it, and it's all about federal government intelligence and what they're doing and how they're going about collecting information that you're not hearing about or seeing even through this inquiry. So
good one. Yeah, because look at Diagolon. It was a nothing. It was a nothing. It was a figment. It was a absolute nothing burger.
Yeah.
And they used it as a credible threat to Canada. Come on.
Yeah.
These guys are off their nuts. Okay? These guys are out to lunch. I mean, when it comes to you know, our security, I tell you right now, as listening to that, it really makes me wonder how much of a threat our country's actually under because of these people being in office. Because they do not sound like they have any experience in what they're dealing with. And, you know, every and when you're backing them into a corner, well, let's call out the RCMP.
Yeah. Okay, Rudy, we got to move on because I'm trying to do air traffic control here, and I've got so many airplanes up there. I can't tell you. So
I love your callers. They're coming in, and I advertised it on my channel, everything. So have at it, buddy. We're gonna get there.
You're a good man. Keep fighting for freedom, my friend.
Hang in.
Okay, talk to you again soon. Bye for now. Okay, let's get through that. And okay, let's take Errol. He's up next. Usually he's like first in line because he's always an eager beaver, but we have so many people calling in tonight that we're just getting to him now. Hello, sir. Welcome back.
Yeah, Rick, this is Errol. Do I have clearance to land?
Yes, you do. On the main runway. And it's I don't know all the aviation terms, but yeah, you're clear for landing. You just go right ahead and do whatever the heck you want. Fly at will, my friend. Be a free bird.
Sounds good. Yo, do you ever recall watching Columbo on TV? He was the old American police lieutenant.
Oh yeah, with his Peter Falk and his overcoat.
And the stinking stogie. Anyway, there's just something about Brendan Miller that kind of reminds me of him. I know Brendan's not a cop, and Columbo wasn't a lawyer, but he just seems, he comes across as being a little bit disheveled, as it were, but he's on his game. He knows what he's talking about. He nails it every time, and yeah, he's truly amazing.
Yeah,
anyway, as I watch the hearings, I'm making notes a mile a minute, and every once in a while, just sort of a random thought pops into my mind, and I wrote this one down, and it says, "This entire exercise is a lame attempt to," and then in quotation marks, "justify the unjustifiable." Mm-hmm. Specifically, the Emergencies Act, right? They're in one way or another, all of these cops and government people, when they're not busy throwing each other under the bus, they're trying to justify the Emergencies Act. Yeah. And there's no justification for it, period. I mean, we all suspected that even before the inquiry began, but as it proceeds, it's becoming clearer and clearer that there was never any justification for it. Yeah. Anyway, and there was another part of the evidence. I don't think it was actually read out by either the lawyer or the witness, but the document appeared on the screen, and there was one line that jumped out at me, and I wrote it down quickly. It was from Mike McDonald, and I don't recall exactly who he is or what his position is, but in any case, he said, and I think I got the quote 100% accurate here. He said, "They are determined to harm individuals to achieve their goals." And I just couldn't believe I read that. I mean, it's just more of the, I mean, Jody Thomas was talking about misinformation and disinformation. There's no better example of misinformation and disinformation than that quote from Mike McDonald right there.
Yeah. I agree.
And last but not least, I'll simply say that, dare I call her Dr. Jody Thomas, instead of being Trudeau's sidekick, she needs to be Teresa Tampon's sidekick, because at the very end there, just before things wrapped up, she said, and again, I think I got the quote 100% accurate here, she said, there is no DNA altering medication in the Kool-Aid. How is that? She obviously didn't say Kool-Aid, but yeah. I don't know if you caught that, but it was right at the very end. She used that as an example.
Yeah, I didn't hear that part, but
yeah, well, yeah, she was using that as an example of the misinformation and disinformation being spread by our side. She said, well, again, yeah, she just said, there's no DNA altering whatever in it. Anyway, that's all I have for this time around, Rick.
Okay, well, thank you, sir. Appreciate that, Sir Errol. We will move on. What I'm going to do, folks, thank you again. We'll talk, I'm sure, tomorrow. If not sooner, you never know when you're going to call back. It's great to have you.
Good, Rick.
All right, thanks. Take care, my friend.
Bye-bye.
And yeah, I'm going to push some buttons here. And this is the number to call. I'll just run this while I take care of that. Just stay with me. I've got lots of other stuff ahead and more calls right after this.
Join the conversation. Call 1-833-975-3733. That's 1-833-975. Free. Speak up. Speak out. Make your voice heard. Maverick News. Fighting for freedom by defending your right to free speech. Be a maverick. Join us.
Okay, we're back and ready to take our next call. And I'm not sure who we have, but you've been waiting quite a while, almost half an hour. Thank you for being so patient. Who do we have on the line?
It's Dave from Alberta.
Well,
Rick, how much can we believe that's coming out of the Ukraine and Russia with the news we're getting? You know, maybe a couple of weeks ago, they said Ukraine got 10,000 Russians they killed. Well, let's see the bodies. You know, everything, it seems, we're not seeing much of what's going on in the war over there. I don't know who to believe. And plus, what is Putin doing? He's got, if he wants the Ukraine, he's got the Ukraine. He's got 275 million people versus 45 million people. He's got much bigger army and more technology. You know, if the rest of the world wants to get in the war, that's not the country to get in the war with, because China's going to side with them. It's just not a great thing. And I don't know what Putin's doing playing with the Ukraine. Seems like he's just playing a game. I don't believe what the media is telling us is going on over there. We're getting nothing out of the what's happened to the convoy, tractor convoy. You don't hear about that anymore. It seems like a lot of things are shut down. You get no pictures, you get no information anymore.
yeah, well, yeah, I mean, I have some stuff lined up here to talk about with regard to that tonight. If we have time, I will get to it. I have a clip of Zelensky. I think I don't believe anything the mainstream media here is saying about it. I don't believe anything that comes out of Zelensky's mouth. I think he has proven.
Yeah, I don't believe anything.
I think he's just proven that he's lying. That I think he tried to pull us into a third world, like a full-blown third world war, kinetic war, by saying that the missile that exploded in Poland was from Russia, and I think they tried to use that. Anyway, we can get into that more when we move on later on in the broadcast. We've got a lot of ground to cover, so I'm gonna drop this call, and we're gonna move on just because I've got so many people tonight. But thank you, very good points and food for thought. Okay, take care.
Have a good night.
You too. And we have Allison up next. Go ahead, you're on the air.
I think we're playing the name game. It's Kenzie.
Oh, yeah. Okay. Yeah. It says, hi, it's Allison, also known as Kenzie. Okay.
There you go.
I don't know, man. It just pops up on my screen. Anyway, go ahead. How are you? Welcome back.
Thank you so much. I think a few of my points have already been covered by earlier callers. But I guess my main thing, okay, first of all, wasn't that Jody so sweet? Like, I have never seen such a sweeter, beautiful person. But I think what she sounded most like was the citizens of Ottawa, the city of Ottawa. She had exactly that same attitude, right? Oh my gosh, this was so terrible. Honk, honk, pollution, pollution. I was so scared. Same exact thing, right?
Yeah.
And then the other thing that really ticked me off is that she seems to think that her position was so important that she should have a committee underneath that does her position for her. Her job, her mandate, her position to talk to the Prime Minister because she, oh, it's unbelievable, because she is his advisor. Therefore, she should advise him of the security intelligence issues that came up. And she had none to say. Absolutely not a single one.
Yeah, if you look at the evidence today, she was reaching a conclusion that was contrary to every police service that was providing intelligence to her. They all told her there was nothing that reached the threshold of a national security threat, and yet she took all that information, all that advice, and she applied her own broader perspective to it to come up with the complete opposite conclusion, which she then provided to the Prime Minister, who then went ahead and invoked the Emergencies Act. Now, you have to ask yourself why. I'll tell you why. Because her position is not about intelligence. It's all about politics.
Oh, but really, she interprets things differently, right?
That's right.
Because even the statutes and law, the various regulations, she said, well, it could say that, but it could be interpreted as that.
That's right.
But it's not my job to do, because that's the lawyer's job. Well, excuse me, but you've just done it. You've just told us there was a different interpretation.
That's right. So she was interpreting the Emergencies Act in the way that sort of fit into what she needed it to fit into to give the Prime Minister what he wanted. That whole thing, the use of the Emergencies Act was politicized. I hope Justice Rouleau can see that, because it's just right there between the lines. You can see it in her testimony. You're absolutely right. Political or what?
Oh, there was no doubt. Every single one of these last few ones have made it abundantly clear that they either will not admit to knowing things that they should know in their job to try and, keep their ass clean. And here they are, just, oh, I'm sorry, I get a little heated. But yeah, they're just covering their butts, right?
That's right.
They're passing it off to everybody else. They're saying it's someone else's job. That's not my remit. That's not my mandate. I don't know. Well, if you guys don't know the law that applies to your specific jurisdiction, then you surely not should be in your job.
That's right.
And why can't corporate business, not regulations, but principles, why could corporate principles not be applicable here? And in other words, if you don't do your freaking job, get out, because you're done. Which is fortunately what Danielle Smith just did to Dr. Dina Henshaw. Anyway, I'll let you go on. Thank you very much for listening and your responses. And say hi to everybody in Rumble.
All right. Thank you. I'll do that. I appreciate the call very much. Okay, let's go to Burnaby. Hello.
Hey, Rick.
How's it going?
Nice. Digging the shirt pinstripes today. Nice job, buddy.
Well, not pinstripes, but yeah, they could probably show up like pinstripes on camera.
It's pretty dark where I am. I just got off the road from 7 days, but I've been listening to this stuff on the radio and, in the hotels and stuff. This lady, she's a complete lizard, okay? She has no intelligence. She's from the University of Calgary. Her degrees are bachelor's in arts and commerce.
Mm-hmm.
She has no background in intelligence whatsoever.
Right.
But she wants more power.
Yep.
She wants more power for her office. She wants to infiltrate everybody's life in every certain way. There was only 5 things that she saw on the internet. Oh, Trudeau must die. We must kill him. Oh, he's a traitor.
Yeah, right.
Okay, people talk shit on the internet every day.
Yep.
Like, your job is redundant. We have the RCMP. We have CSIS. Your job is completely redundant. And how much are we paying this broad? Are you friggin' kidding me? And then she sits on her laurels and goes, I'm not a lawyer and I can't answer that. And that seems argumentative. Like, no, lady, answer the friggin' question.
Yeah.
No, fire this.
Yeah.
Fire her.
And I'm sort of laughing, but it's not funny at all. It's not funny.
It is funny. This is how redundant our government is and how many barriers they put up, and we pay for it to protect this man-child.
Yeah.
Oh, someone said something mean to me. Oh my God, I got to get another office for it. Are you friggin' kidding me, dude? Look what Xi Jinping did to him. He dismissed him like a beat dog. He ran away behind the curtain after he talked to the head of China.
That's right. That's right.
Yeah, like, are you friggin' kidding me? You don't think that the whole world is watching what's going on in this inquiry? The man makes us look like idiots. And I hate to tell you, but you know what? It's going to happen again. I'm telling you, it's going to happen again. You know what? We learned from the first time what he's going to try and do. You don't think that the Canadians are going to come back the second time and go, okay, we know what you're up to now. The police forces are going to stand down and go, nope, not getting involved with that. Not my pig, not my farm. Nope, nope, screw that. Nope. Trying to say that there was no violence. There was violence against the police, against the public. The girl from Rebel News got shot in the leg at point blank.
Yeah.
Do you remember that?
Oh yeah, I remember. I've seen the video a million times. People, the two people trampled by the horses.
And that one man still hasn't appeared. The guy in the gray cap still has not appeared yet. Where did he go?
Which guy in the gray cap? Oh, the guy that got trampled.
Yeah. He hasn't surfaced yet. He hasn't been anywhere. And where is the videotape from all the civilians that were live streaming? Isn't this funny that none of that's coming into this inquiry?
Yeah, very little of it.
It's all, yeah, it's kind of funny, isn't it?
Yeah.
So this is just a hoax. This whole thing's a hoax. But the whole world is seeing that our government is corrupt. The city of Ottawa is corrupt. The RCMP is corrupt.
Yep.
That makes us really look bad on the world stage. Like really bad.
Yeah, they talked about branding the other day, right? And it's the government that's doing damage to Canada's brand. The government itself.
Like Justin Trudeau looks like Joe Biden now, walking around at the G20. Nobody wants to talk to him. They keep walking away from him. Oh, no, you're toxic. I'm getting the hell out of here. Nope, you talk shit. I'm out of here.
Yeah, what he did to Xi Jinping, man, nobody's going to trust that guy now. They don't want to talk to
Hell
him.
no. He ratted them out. That was supposed to be a secret meeting.
Yeah.
He ratted them out right away. No one's going to trust Canada until we get rid of this guy.
He's got to go.
And another thing, we're not allowed back in the EU Parliament until his ass is gone. And you know that, right?
Yeah, he's got to go. He's just got to go.
Yeah, he's done. Anyways, you got lots of callers, but thanks for the time. I just wanted you guys to know that she ain't got no education. She's got a Bachelor of Arts and a Bachelor of Commerce from the University of Calgary. She's a nobody, and she's useless.
Thank you for the call, sir.
You bet you. You take care of yourself, Rick. Thank you.
Okay, see you. Bye. Okay, what we're going to do, folks, is I'm going to jump off these calls because there's a bunch of other news that we need to cover. And then if there's time, we'll go back to the phones at the tail end of this. And I'm going to try and get through all of this stuff as quickly as I can. So I'm just going to, again, take a very short break with this transition so I can queue up the first stuff. And we'll get through this. And I think it'll be informative. You're not going to want to miss it because we've got drag queen story time polling. We've got, all the stuff I laid out just before we got into these phone calls. Mask mandates, Danielle Smith, hospital and healthcare reform. More talk about the triple-demic. Don't go away. More coming up right after this.
Maverick News. The world is watching.
Okay, so have you seen this? Just briefly, we'll talk about this. Governor of Texas, Greg Abbott, posting this. He says, I invoked the invasion clauses of the U.S. and Texas constitutions to fully authorize Texas to take unprecedented measures to defend our state against an invasion. I'm using that constitutional authority and other authorization and executive orders to keep our state and country safe. Deploy the National Guard to safeguard our border and to repel and turn back immigrants trying to cross the border illegally. Deploy the Texas Department of Public Safety to arrest and return to the border immigrants who crossed illegally, and deploy DPS to arrest illegal immigrants for criminal activity. Build a border wall in multiple counties on the border. Deploy gunboats to secure the border. Designate Mexican drug cartels as foreign terrorist organizations. Enter into a compact with other states to secure the border. Enter into agreements with foreign powers to enhance border security, and provide resources for border counties to increase their efforts to respond to the border invasion. Big contrast between the way the governor of Texas conducts himself and the way our governments do up here. I'll tell you, big contrast. What else do we have? We've had enough of that for today. I want to run this video because it kind of hits home personally for me. Gina sent me this, and it's definitely worth a look. It's about medical assistance and dying, and I'm just going to run this.
Enough reasons to be ashamed about being Canadian. Here's another. If there already wasn't enough reasons to be ashamed about being Canadian, here's another.
Amir Farsood has applied for medically assisted dying, known as MAID. He lives in constant agony due to a back injury, but has started the process for end of life because his rooming house is up for sale and he can't find anywhere else to live that he can afford. He doesn't want to die, but being homeless is not an option.
I know in my present health condition, I wouldn't survive it anyway.
His doctor, who knows Farsood's real reason for MAID is his fear of being homeless, signed off on the application in August.
I don't wish to be dead, even with the pain, even with the meds. I still want to be here.
Are you afraid to die?
Who isn't?
So MAIDs, medical assistance in dying, is basically the option here in Canada to give people a dignified death. Now, I don't know how I feel about it as a whole, because it was originally intended to be used for people who had some kind of chronic illness that had no hope for the future, or some sort of impending doom where they were going to suffer a horrible death either way. But that's not what we're seeing here. We see a man who suffers a chronic illness, but does not want to die because of his chronic illness, but instead wants to die because he fears he may become homeless and will die anyways on the streets. And the worst part about it is he was accepted. He was approved for MAIDs. This is disgusting. As a country, we should be ashamed that we cannot help our own that are in need, but instead usher them on to the next life so that they do not become a burden to us. March 2023, MAIDs will open up for people who suffer from mental health conditions. What that entails, who knows? But if this is a sign of the future of our country, I expect a lot of unnecessary death.
People don't understand what's going on. They don't understand what MAID is. They still think that it is people who are at the end of life, laying in bed, unable to get up because they're so sick with cancer or some other terrible disease and in such pain that they have no quality of life left and no hope. And they're basically being euthanized because it's merciful. Now, some people do understand and still support this MAID program, but that's not the previous scenario, is not what this is. The government has made it extremely easy for virtually anyone to get a doctor to come in to kill them. That's what it is. It's very, very easy. Someone close to me just went through it and just did it. I strongly disagree with it. It's pretty close to me, and some people around me don't want me to talk too much about it. I don't know how you hide it when the person's no longer around. This is our government out of control. I put the blame for this to what has been done to my family and the people around me by this government squarely on the Prime Minister. You don't go out to dinner with someone who sits at a table surrounded by people that love them and then have a doctor come in the next morning. Like, you go out for dinner and they're just up walking around in the restaurant like anybody else there, enjoying the evening in the company of loved ones, friends, family. A final dinner, Last Supper. So that the next morning, a doctor shows up, puts in the IV, they say goodbye. It's wrong. You just saw it, that guy. It's a real thing. This is happening in our country right now. And they have, because it was going on to someone around me, and I was researching it, I started to get advertisements for it, taking me to a website with smiling people, pictures of smiling people on it, promoting it. In my opinion, what I saw happen, there was no dignity in it. Not one shred. More news right after this.
Maverick News. The world is watching.
If you're from the US and you're one of our American viewers, you might not know who Danielle Smith is, but she's a rising star within the freedom movement, I would say. New Premier of Alberta, the province of Alberta. She is busy reforming their healthcare system. Held a news conference today. An earlier caller made reference to the chief medical officer, Dr. Dina Hinshaw, who Danielle Smith fired, got her out. Danielle Smith just came in as the premier, and today at this news conference announced some big changes in Alberta. We're just going to go and show you some of that briefly. And here we go. The audio might be a
All
little
right.
low.
Shall we begin? Can you hear me all right? Everybody ready? Well, good afternoon and thanks for joining us here today. We're here because I promised Albertans that I would address the decades-long issue that we have in our healthcare system and that I'd do it without delay. The current process isn't working fast enough, so we need to do something different. Patients are waiting too long to access our healthcare system despite the excellent work of doctors and nurses, paramedics, and other frontline staff. Albertans are waiting for ambulances. They're waiting to be admitted to the emergency department. They're waiting for surgery. They're waiting to get an appointment with a family doctor. And quite frankly, they can't wait any longer. We need a healthcare system that meets our growing demand and to take action to improve access. And today we are taking steps to do just that with the guidance and leadership of Health Minister Jason Copping. To begin, effective immediately, Dr. John Cowell will step up as the official administrator of Alberta Health Services. Dr. Cowell, as you will hear, brings a wealth of experience to the position, including a previous role as the official administrator of Alberta Health Services. He can accelerate the changes that we all need to see. He is familiar with Alberta's healthcare system. He knows that we can do better, and I have every confidence in his ability to deliver meaningful reform for Albertans. Dr. Cowell's appointment will provide the urgent, efficient, effective, timely, and decisive leadership that will improve healthcare outcomes for all Albertans. Now, specifically, we have asked Dr. Cowell to look at 4 urgent needs. 1, improve EMS response times. 2, decrease emergency room wait times. 3, reduce the wait times for surgeries. And 4, develop long-term reforms through the consultation with frontline workers. Dr. Cowell will report directly to Minister Copping and to me. And I must say, Albertans have been waiting and they cannot wait any longer. I would like to invite Minister Copping to provide some detail on each of these areas about this plan going forward. Minister Copping.
Thank you, Premier, and good afternoon, everyone. I'm pleased to be able to provide some further details on plans for AHS reforms. Albertans want to know that world-class healthcare is available to them when they need it. We promised Albertans a stronger publicly funded system with better access to care. That's been my priority as health minister from day one. It's the Premier's priority. And we're working.
So I'm not going to run like this whole thing, but it is important. And even if you're in the US, you need to take note of this, folks, because Danielle Smith, the new Premier, she's on the freedom side. This is you're going to be seeing, as a result of what they're announcing here today, the first steps toward a new era in healthcare in Alberta that is and this freedom-oriented approach to governing out in Alberta, I think, is going to spread to other provinces as well. We're already seeing some impact even in the province of Saskatchewan. And prior to Danielle Smith's arrival, we were seeing pastors arrested during the pandemic, severe lockdowns, all the far left authoritarian style fascistic measures that were present in, mainly progressive, liberal, socialistic provinces and states, all the same stuff, but this is a turning point in Alberta. So we'll see what happens over time. It won't be long, and they're going to have to go to the polls and have an election out there. But Danielle Smith is not wasting any time, making a big mark, leaving her mark and making a statement in her province of Alberta to show people what she's all about before they get to that point. But yeah, we'll see if she survives this next election. Mainstream media already reporting as of midweek last week that the New Democrats were gaining ground in the polls, and they were predicting that the NDP, the New Democratic Party, which is far left socialist, would be elected if there was an election today, that they're leading in the polls, and that Danielle Smith and the United Conservative Party is in a bit of trouble that way. I'm not so sure. I don't put a lot of stock in those polls, but we definitely are going to be looking at this. And that first step of getting rid of Dina Hinshaw as the chief medical officer and replacing her with this new doctor, that's a major step. And it signals a change in attitude, philosophy, ideology, and even in systems. So keep an eye on Alberta. Keep your eye on Danielle Smith, a rising star. Now, in Ontario as well today, they were addressing the concerns about hospital capacity and talking again, the health minister in Ontario talking again about a surge in respiratory illnesses. I'm not going to run the clips from her today because I think that you kind of get the picture without me even showing you. And mainstream media picking up on all of that and running stories like this to reinforce what I would say is the media party's call for a return to mask mandates. Here's the headline from CTV News. Despite spread of multiple viruses, children in hospitals, provinces, and territories stop short of issuing mask mandates. And then this story goes on to talk again about this triple-demic of COVID, the flu, and RSV. RSV being basic, according to the Mayo Clinic, an illness that mimics a sort of a serious cold, and every kid gets it. Virtually every child ends up being infected with it at some point by the time they're at the age of 2. But they're portraying RSV as some massive, huge problem, and they're saying that the hospital system is being taxed in terms of capacity because of this. And then this story goes on to look at the situation in terms of capacity and infections across Canada, province by province, and in the territories of Canada as well. The, I think, main goal here is, well, there's a multi-pronged reason why they're providing coverage like this. One being they're looking for clicks online. They're looking for a bigger audience through television. And I think that they're giving the government what the government wants. Stories that spread more concern and even fear about all of this. They're pushing people's emotional buttons to build ratings and support the government narrative. Nancy Pelosi is out. She's out. Here's what she had to say. Says she will not seek leadership position in the next Congress. Here's the clip.
Every purpose under heaven. My friends, no matter what title you all, my colleagues, have bestowed upon me, speaker, leader, whip, there is no greater official honor for me than to stand on this floor and to speak for the people of San Francisco. This I will continue to do as a member of the House, speaking for the people of San Francisco, serving the great state of California, and defending our Constitution. With great confidence in our caucus, I will not seek re-election to Democratic leadership in the next Congress. For me, the hour's come for a new generation to lead the Democratic caucus that I so deeply respect. And I'm grateful that so many are ready and willing to shoulder this awesome responsibility. Madam Speaker.
There you have it. And I'm sure many of you out there tonight are saying, good riddance, Nancy Pelosi. Yeah. And what about that situation with the missile in Poland? Well, folks, I think the big question is, was Zelensky trying to suck us all into a full-blown kinetic third world war with a lie? Well, here's a report from Wyon. We can assess
Day after
from here.
missile strike killed 2 people in Poland, Ukrainian President Vladimir Zelensky called for an investigation on the missile that crashed inside Poland. Meanwhile, Zelensky's comments on how the missile that hit Poland is Russian contradicts that of Poland and NATO. now, which say that the explosion was probably caused by a Ukrainian air defense missile launched to intercept a Russian missile.
Я не сумніваюся в тому, що це була не наша ракета або не наш ракетний удар. Вони не мають сенсу їм не довіряти. Я з ними війну пройшов. І з вами.
The blast occurred outside an eastern village, just 6.4 kilometers west from the Ukrainian border. The timing of the missile crashing in Poland coincided with Russia launching its biggest wave of missile attacks on Ukrainian cities, targeting its energy grid and worsening power blackouts for millions here. Meanwhile, during the UNSC session, Poland's envoy to the United Nations outlined on how this tragedy would have never happened if Russia did not invade Ukraine.
No matter what was the particular course of the events in Przewodów, that fatal afternoon, those innocent people would not have been killed if there had been no Russian war against Ukraine. Their only fault was the fact that they lived close to the civilian infrastructure on the Ukrainian side of the border that Russia keeps attacking as military targets.
Now, the U.S. ambassador to the United Nations, Linda Thomas-Greenfield, also echoed similar concerns, asserting on how the tragedy in Poland would have not occurred if Russia did not launch its recent missile assault against Ukraine's civilian infrastructure.
While we still don't know all the facts, we do know one thing. This tragedy would never have happened but for Russia's needless invasion of Ukraine and its recent missile assaults against Ukraine's civilian infrastructure. The UN Charter is clear. Ukraine has every right to defend itself against this barrage.
WION is now available.
Yeah, okay. So unbelievable. That's when they were ready to go, they're ready to escalate. We had emergency meetings with the G7 and NATO because a missile went into a farmer's field and hit a tractor and a trailer, and that was going to be enough because it was 50 miles inside the Polish border for a full-blown war. What, against Russia? Like go into Russia, invade Russia? When they said it was a Russian missile. Now we're hearing that no, it was probably a Ukrainian. It's a Ukrainian. Fired by the Ukrainians. A Russian made, but fired by Ukrainians, by the Ukrainian forces. And that's okay. Well, so that you've got a NATO, almost a NATO country. It's a NATO country, Ukraine, firing into another NATO country. All is forgiven, but it's still Russia's fault. Everything's Russia's fault. Everything. Here's Ron Paul with his take on it. I would suggest to you that Zelensky is a liar. And he was ramping up the propaganda using that explosion to suck us all into a big war.
Talk a little bit about what's going over across the big pond and find out if there's any good news in Poland or Ukraine. But there was a little bit of skirmish about deciding who's to blame for the bomb that hit Poland.
Yeah.
But Zelensky, he lives there. He has a lot at stake, and he likes. He benefits by crises. So I think he looked like he was expanding the crisis. It wasn't for a calming effect. So he knew everything. He knew how it happened. The Russians did this bomb him.
Mm-hmm.
So, but that didn't work out so well because it wasn't too long afterwards that there was some common sense. If there was ever a time when people ought to take a deep breath, especially if you're involved with, borders and war and bombs and hatred and all these things. Why can't they just sit back and, try to get in touch and they say, let's have a conversation, let's talk about this, instead of spouting it off. But I guess it's not a complete accident that in the time that they were getting concerned about the bombing, there were more bigger requests than ever for Ukraine. They needed more and more money. And it seems like the resistance in our government is not that great. You'd think that maybe after a major discussion about the war, and a campaign, that there would be maybe a little different position. So far, I don't know. I don't think the politicians at least have a different opinion. Although we identified at times where people were starting to say, "Hey, enough is enough. Why don't you worry about our borders and our budget?" But no, they're always on the side of more spending. And of course, we talked about that extensively about. Well, it just happens to have something to do with the lobbying effort, the military-industrial complex. So it looks much calmer now. Zelensky, I just sort of see him as just fading away because he was certainly noisy for war, but now he came down on the wrong side of the issue. At least he got caught early on. Thank goodness for that.
Yeah, thank goodness for that. It just shows how volatile things are, how fragile, how dangerous, how incredibly dangerous. Wow, just wow. All because a missile went into a farmer's field. We almost had a total escalation. And I hope this wakes up Canadians and Americans who have even been supporting this war. I really do hope it wakes people up. Unfortunately, even this, I don't think it's enough. They're still not cluing in. The media is just not giving us, the mainstream media is, it's not that they're not giving us the right information. They're still spoon feeding propaganda to people. Pro-war, pro-Ukrainian war propaganda. Let's get a quick burst from Tucker Carlson. He's also saying that this kind of thing could get us all killed.
Thing about the news media, no matter how horrible they are, is that you need them. You can't understand the world except through the news media. That's where all of our information comes from. Can't really change that at this point, but we can go into it with open eyes. And so you should know that the thing about reading the news is even when it's not intentionally dishonest, and often now it is, no matter what the intent of it, the first draft of the story that you read is always wrong. Not sometimes wrong, always wrong. Occasionally in small ways, sometimes in big and utterly distorting ways. Dewey defeats Truman, Iraq has nukes, Russia bombed its own pipeline. Stories like this are laughably untrue. They are an inversion of the truth, which inevitably emerges later. And at times it's unintentional. They just made a mistake. They got it wrong. But more often on the big stories, the ones that change policy, they are lying on purpose. So how do you know whether they're lying on purpose or whether they just got it wrong by accident? Well, when the story trends on social media, you know. That means that somewhere there's a tech executive who's decided to crank up the propaganda dial in order to manipulate you. It's really not so different from what the North Korean state news agency does. When there's a famine, they start promoting stories about record rice harvests, so you wouldn't notice. So with that in mind, it would have been worth pausing for a moment in skepticism when you saw that story in your phone yesterday about how Russia had bombed Poland. Poland is a member of NATO, the North American Treaty Organization. So are we. That means if Russia were to attack NATO, then we could very easily be obligated to attack Russia back. Russia has the largest nuclear arsenal in the world. So that would be inevitably, by definition, World War III. Hundreds of people might die. So this was not a small story. It was Archduke Ferdinand and Sarajevo stuff. This story came, as it so often does, from the Associated Press, citing, again, as usual, a quote, unnamed senior U.S. intel official. So according to this unnamed intel official, Russia had launched an entirely unprovoked first strike against Poland. The Russian military had lobbed missiles into Polish territory, thereby killing 2 Poles at a farm. So by definition, it was time for Europe and the US to invoke Article 5, the collective defense principle, and begin a total war on Vladimir Putin. President Zelensky of Ukraine agreed with this. The US must declare war on Russia in the wake of this story. Watch his reaction.
What we warned about a long time ago happened today. We've been saying this. Terror is not limited to our national borders. It's already spread to the territory of Moldova. And today, Russian missiles hit Poland, the territory of a friendly country. To fire missiles at NATO territory, this is a Russian missile attack on collective security. This is a very significant escalation. We must act.
This is a Russian missile attack on collective security. In other words, not simply on Poland or on Ukraine, but on the United States. It's an attack on the U.S. by Russia, and, quote, we must act. So this is a man with some moral authority. This is the only head of state in the world to receive a Vogue photo spread this year. This is a personal friend of Sean Penn and Ben Stiller's. And here he was commanding the U.S. to lead the Third World War immediately. So as we said, this was not a minor AP story. The only problem was it was completely and utterly wrong. Zelensky, the unnamed American intel officer, and the Associated Press had all been trafficking in dangerous misinformation. That became clear within a few hours when pictures of the exploded missile surfaced on social media. People who know a lot about military hardware started asking questions about this stuff. So they looked at a picture of a fragment of the motor from this destroyed missile, and they noticed that the ordnance was an S-300 system. Now, the S-300 system is only being used by the Ukrainian military, not the Russians. So it could not have been a Russian military attack. Somehow, Ukraine had bombed Poland and killed people. That's true. And within a day, the Pentagon, NATO, and even the government of Poland all were forced to admit that. That's what happened. Ukraine did it. But here's the interesting thing, and the thing that is relevant to us. Ukraine never admitted that. Zelensky kept lying on television. So when you run a country where the free press has been banned, as it has been in Ukraine, you may not realize that the rest of the world is not required to believe you. You can't throw them all in jail. So he kept telling you what you knew was not true. Quote, I have no doubt that this is not our missile, he said today. I believe that this was a Russian missile based on military reports. Again, that's not only untrue, it's a lie that could get millions of Americans killed. So you have to ask yourself, is it time to stop backing this guy? Could the risk be too high? He's lying on purpose to get us into a war? Maybe he's not worth supporting in the first place. Maybe he's just another corrupt Eastern European strongman in a tracksuit getting as rich as he can from American handouts. That might be the lesson, but that is not at all the lesson that the Biden administration is drawing from what just happened. Watch former Raytheon board member Lloyd Austin explain that even if the missile attack was from Ukraine, it's still Russia's fault.
This explosion was most likely the result of a Ukrainian air defense missile that unfortunately landed in Poland. And whatever the final conclusions may be, the world knows that Russia bears ultimate responsibility for this incident.
So this is not what we would refer to as evidence-based reasoning. What you're hearing from the Secretary of Defense is that Ukraine lobbed a missile into Poland and killed Poles, but you need to continue to send billions to Ukraine to fight Russia. So now you're starting to see why the unnamed intel official leaked this story to the Associated Press in the first place, this manufactured story. And the point, of course, was to manipulate the United States Congress, as so often happened. Unnamed American intel official leaks something to the New York Times, Washington Post, AP. Members of Congress read this and do what the intel agencies and the administration want them to do. And we can all but prove that in this case, because shortly after this fake news of this fake Russian missile attack appeared on the AP wire, the White House demanded another $37 billion in funding for Ukraine. So that raises the question, where does that put us? What's the total that we've sent to Ukraine so far? Well, in just 9 months, the Biden administration has committed a total of $91 billion to Ukraine at a time when our border is still open and our economy is degrading fast. So how much is that? Well, as Glenn Greenwald pointed out today, $91 billion is twice the average annual U.S. expenditure during our own war in Afghanistan. $91 billion is 33% more than the entire annual military budget of the entire country of Russia. But it's not enough. Today, Mark Milley informed us that $91 billion is just the beginning.
The United States are determined to continue to support Ukraine with the means to defend themselves for as long as it takes. We will continue to support Ukraine for as long as it takes, and we will continue to support them as long as it takes. And until then, we will continue to support all the way for as long as it takes. We will be there for as long as it takes.
So there you have the obedient little general reading the talking points again, but it still doesn't answer the question, why? As long as it takes, okay. Some things are worth that commitment, but why this one? What is the point of this exactly? We can't say we're defending democracy in Ukraine, which is not a democratic country. We can't explain clearly or even at all where our national security interest lies in this conflict between two Eastern European countries. So why would we bankrupt ourselves to fund it? Could it be that this entire effort is a choreographed scam to enrich the Democratic Party and its allies and achieve left-wing ideological goals that have nothing to do with the core interests of the United States? Could it be this whole thing is BLM Eastern European edition? Well, it's possible, because that is how Washington actually works, and the brewing FTX scandal kind of exposes that. You may have read about this. FTX is the cryptocurrency exchange that just blew up in one of the single biggest one-day losses in world history, possibly the biggest ever. Now, what was FTX? It wasn't a conventional business. No, in fact, it was the finance arm of the Democratic Party. And the back scratching, the snake eating its tail, is on full display in this story. So Democrats invited FTX's CEO, Sam Bankman-Fried, to the White House to discuss crypto regulation. So the people who were supposed to be keeping this business within the lines were actually colluding with the business and doing nothing to keep it from defrauding its investors. And then in Congress was also supposed to be overseeing the finance sector. Maxine Waters, who chairs the Financial Services Committee, was palling around with Sam Bankman-Fried. She took the picture with him you're seeing on your screen now. That picture was taken after the first ever hearing on crypto regulations. So that's a pretty good deal. You're running a scam and the regulators are on your side. How do you keep them on your side? Well, if you're Sam Bankman-Fried, you donate nearly $40 billion to Democrats in the midterm, which he did. And that total puts him number 2 on the donor list, right below George Soros. Now, that's so obviously illegal and wrong and corrupt that you'd probably want to make sure nobody wrote about it. And that's why Sam Bankman-Fried also bought off the media. He handed millions to places like Vox, The Intercept, Semafor, ProPublica, and probably many others. So with tens of billions of dollars evaporating into thin air, and Sam Bankman-Fried not even within the borders of the United States tonight, the question is, where are investors left? There are a lot of big retirement funds who are invested in this thing in this country and in Canada. Will they get any of their money back? What about the money that Sam Bankman-Fried gave to the Democratic Party? Will the Democrats have to give it back to the people who are defrauded? Will the media companies that took it, Semafor, for example, have to give it back to the people whose money was effectively stolen? Well, Maxine Waters was a beneficiary of this, and she was asked today whether she's returning any of these donations. Fox's Hillary Vaughn just caught up with Waters, and she made it very clear, of course, she's keeping the money.
Do you think some lawmakers that got donations from FTX's founder should give that money back?
Oh, well, I don't want to get into that. As a matter of fact, both sides, Democrats and Republicans, have received donations. So thank you.
Yeah, everyone did it. No, actually, everyone didn't do it. This was the finance arm of the Democratic Party. One of the biggest stories of the year, maybe the last 10 years. We're going to have a lot more on it tomorrow and in the weeks to come. But why are we telling you about it tonight? We're telling you about it because you should know that FTX was also in partnership with the government of Ukraine, because all threads return to the same spool. It'd be interesting to know how much money, if any, Ukraine funneled back to FTX, which then wound up in the hands of Democrats running for Congress in this last cycle. We don't know the answer. An audit might tell us. There has been no audit. Today in the House, Marjorie Taylor Greene has been demanding an audit, but to no avail so far. And that means the tens of billions of your tax dollars the Biden administration has shoveled to the government of Ukraine remain, as of tonight, completely unaccountable.
And we will be hearing a lot more about that over time. And we have some some more news for you right after this. Don't go away. And I'm going to play that clip that of that Canadian senator again, telling the truth when he thought he wasn't being recorded.
Hello, world. Are you awake? Uniting humankind by liberating millions of minds at a time. Maverick News. The world is watching.
The New World Order. Government overreach. The Great Reset. Mainstream media lies. Now more than ever, independent voices are needed. Donate now at freedomreporters.com. That's freedomreporters.com. Maverick News. The antivirus program for your mind.
This morning, if you started watching first thing when our coverage of our pre-inquiry coverage started this morning, I began things by running a video clip of a senator, Michael McDonald. The reason I ran it is because it's circulating on social media. Again, a lot of people are not aware of it. It has been suppressed. This is a video that was shot during the Freedom Convoy. Senator Michael McDonald was approached by a live streamer. And he said, I don't want to be recorded, but he was live. So they engaged in conversation, the senator and the live streamer, VidStorm. And when he thought no one was hearing him except the live streamer, he told the truth. And he said what was really on his mind. And it sounds like he's poised to become a Canadian hero by telling the truth. But it didn't quite work out that way. I'm going to play the clip again. It needs to be shown, especially in the midst of this inquiry that is now, in its fourth week or something in that range? Day 25 today. This is the truth about the Freedom Convoy from a Canadian senator who whispered into the ear of a live streamer. This video by VidStorm.
How you doing? Good. Yourself? Not bad. Right on.
Where you went from?
Pardon?
Where you went from?
Toronto.
How are you?
Yeah.
Good man yourself.
Right on. Where are you from? Local?
Nova Scotia.
Nova Scotia.
Yeah.
Right on.
Yeah.
Thanks for coming down, brother. Right on.
I'm not coming here. I work here.
Oh, you work here?
I do.
Oh, right on.
I do. I'm. Don't turn me. Don't put that on. I don't want to be recorded. Right?
Okay.
Just want to talk to you as a friend.
Sure. Talk to me, brother.
Right? This is SoundCloud. This is SoundCloud.
Oh, yeah.
No, people realize nothing going to be freedom in this country anymore. Are we a country anymore? We're going to sit around and watch Android being told what to do? We will.
I agree. I agree, brother.
No, something like this. How old are you?
37.
I'm 67.
67? Yeah.
I'm just, so People that say the hills are proud.
Beautiful.
I think they have courage and integrity and determination. Come out, hold the ground.
Mm-hmm.
This country is full of people with no courage. It's full of Karens, silly people, people judging, who criticize. But people with better judgment have to prevail.
Yeah, absolutely.
People with better judgment have to step forward and say, no.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. 100%.
Right? What do you do?
I'm a streamer. Well, my day-to-day is I'm a plumber.
Are you?
Yes, sir. There we go, guys.
The world needs plumbers, brother.
Yes, sir. Yeah.
Too many people going to university, taking useless degrees.
Mm-hmm.
And I always say, we should be, instead of subsidizing people's university degrees, let's produce more pipe fitters and plumbers and electricians and journeymen and carpenters and stationary engineers and people that can do things that are useful.
Yeah. Yeah, 100%.
Instead of virtue signaling and you won't know who I am. You'll never guess why.
I do not know.
I'm a senator.
Oh, yeah. Okay.
Service. I'm the only conservative senator. My father went to sea when he was 12 to raise his family. He worked hard his whole life for everything. People with 6 figure salaries saying we're your friends, no, you're your fucking enemies. You're a bunch of sellouts and people here who I made a lot of different political persuasion with them. But we have the right to be free in our own country.
Yeah.
And
yeah.
When I see the government put a fence around the war memorial as if to imply that it's endangered.
Yeah.
I've been here for 3 weeks.
Mm-hmm.
I walked from my office in the East Block to my hotel room in Weston.
Yeah.
I never felt so safe in the half of the past 3 weeks.
Yeah.
I don't feel battles or threatened. I feel safe.
100%.
Threatened by people who are my friends.
Yeah.
And are bullying me.
The only thing you got to be worried about here is getting a hug from a stranger.
No, that's right.
Here.
No, that's right. That's right. But I just kick it over how the way people here are being lied about, misrepresented. I sat at home. I said, look, I'm there. I'm like newspapers home, Cape of Nova Scotia.
Mm-hmm.
All these local journalists, same local, regurgitating what's told out of CTV or CBC or Global.
Yeah.
I'm there every day. I've been here every day for the last 3 weeks. Walking through everybody.
Nothing but peace.
Don't you tell me there's a problem.
Yeah. Yeah.
I know the difference.
Right
I know it because I'm living it.
Yeah.
And you're representing these people this way. If you think this is only truckers, there's a hell of a lot more than truckers.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. It's
There's a cross section of Canadians that said we have had enough of the bullying and the duplicity and the lies and the social management and the bullying and the control freaks and everything else, right? And we're up against a lot. I mean, the country's full of Karens. My wife's a Karen, scared to death. Oh, I just wish they'd leave. I said, why don't you leave? I said, I don't care if they leave in Windsor or in the other places where they're shutting down transportation or in Ottawa.
Yeah. Oh, well, everybody's watching. This is worldwide. Everybody's watching.
People say, oh, I hear this all the time. They're in our city. It's everybody's fucking city. This is the capital of the country, not your goddamn city.
Yeah.
Just because you have a 6-figure salary and you work 20 hours a week, we haven't worked full week in 2 years.
Yeah. Yeah.
No, it's sickening.
Yeah.
It's sickening.
I hear you, brother.
Right? It's sickening.
Thanks, my man. I really appreciate talking to you.
I grew up with nothing.
Yeah.
I'm not a better person than anybody else. I'm a special person. I grew up, I'm a baby of 10. You know, I paid my way to university. I peeled pulp, and I went to the Grand Banks because my parents had no money. You know what I'm owed? Nothing. I'm owed nothing. This country gave me more than my father had and my grandparents, right? And I'm so sick of the entitlement in this country and this fucking city. Everybody around the city with their 6-figure salaries and 20-hour weeks and their bullshit nonsense. A couple of people bigots and racists and everything else. This is so unfair to the country and so unfair to people. And I know it's unfair because I'm here.
Yeah.
I know it's not true. Right?
Absolutely.
Thanks for having the courage and the decency to come here.
Thanks, brother.
Right? You're not alone.
Thanks you.
All
Thank
right?
you. Thank you. Thank
God
you.
bless you.
God bless you too, man.
Good words. He was telling the truth. But then we got this. Then we got this. The media got a hold of it because it was live streamed. So the mainstream media picked up on it. And then he felt the pressure. In today's Canada, families are being destroyed, businesses are being lost, depression is rising, children are falling behind in their education. I've never seen this country so unhappy and divided, and people so stressed. A lot of people are falling through the cracks. And if this unfortunate episode brings some attention to this unacceptable truth, then my present embarrassment will have accomplished something positive. I can assure all my colleagues that I am contrite. I have always tried to be a responsible and actively engaged senator, and I love this city and working towards the betterment of my country. I'm sorry for those I have disappointed. Oh, there's the key words, right? I'm sorry. I particularly want to apologize to my wife, who is the salt of the earth and the rock of my family. What was her name again? Karen? Oh, I expect better from me, and I will do better going forward. Michael L. McDonald. Michael McDonald. A moment of clarity, a moment of truth from someone who, for a brief moment, looked like he might be a Canadian hero. But as you will see from what he said in this, after the CBC got a hold of the story, along with other mainstream media, well, you'll see that he isn't a Canadian hero at all. He's just part of the problem because he's just like the rest.
When you have your home insurance with the date,
We'll pick this up. Here we go. He's just part of the problem.
Senator MacDonald. Honorable Senators, I would like to take this moment, my earliest opportunity in the address the comments that I made last week. Last Wednesday evening, while walking back to my hotel after having late supper with some colleagues, I was approached by a man who wanted to talk about the protests in Ottawa. I agreed to speak to him, but I said only if it was to be off the record and not recorded, which he agreed to. I subsequently discovered that was not the case. I left the impression that I agreed with trucks being illegally parked in the downtown and made some mangled remarks about the sentiments of people in Ottawa regarding the protest. So I first want to apologize to the people of Ottawa for my clumsy language. It was not my intention to disparage anyone. Like so many Canadians, I am mentally exhausted after 2 years of lockdowns and a third year facing more of the same. It was the demand to open this country back up that I support, something that was initiated by the truckers and later supported by those many Canadians from across the country who showed up on Parliament Hill. I appreciate how frustrating this has been for the people of Ottawa. Over the past 12 years, I have experienced many noisy demonstrations on the lawn in front of Parliament directly below my office. I don't always agree with the causes being advanced, but I strongly believe in the right of peaceful protest. When I arrived from work over 3 weeks ago and saw the trucks all over Wellington Street, I couldn't believe that this was allowed to occur. Ottawa has a professional, well-trained, modern police force which, if properly directed, is more than capable of preventing a situation like this from developing. This failure is the responsibility of City Hall. Yes, I am one of those many fortunate people in this country who didn't have to worry about the pandemic affecting my regular paycheck because I am paid by the taxpayer. Politicians and bureaucrats at all three levels of government nationwide, academics, teachers, military people, anyone drawing a good pension, anybody directly or indirectly paid by the taxpayer right across this country, endure the restrictions put on people's lives with little worry. But over half the people in this country don't have that security. That was the real sentiment that I was wanting to express, that those of us in secure positions should put ourselves in the shoes of those in Canada that don't have income security and certainty. It's time we stand up for those working men and women who only get paid when they create their own income. In today's Canada, families are being destroyed, businesses are being lost, depression is rising, children are falling behind in their education. I have never seen this country so unhappy and divided, and people so stressed. A lot of people are falling through the cracks. And if this unfortunate episode brings some attention to this unacceptable truth, then my present embarrassment will have accomplished something positive. I can assure all of my colleagues that I am contrite. I've always tried to be a responsible and actively engaged senator, and I love this city and working towards the betterment of my country. I'm sorry for those I have disappointed. I particularly want to apologize to my wife, who is the salt of the earth and the rock of my family. I expect better from me, and I will do better going forward. Thank you.
So is he a leader? As I said before, you know what his job is as a senator? It's to protect us. That's what the Senate is there for. The Senate is the house of sober second thought. That's where everything goes after Parliament passes a bill. Then it goes to the Senate. They have to review it, approve it before it goes on to royal assent. They review things. It's his job to protect us. Do you know how much money he makes? Last I checked, a senator base salary, $150,000 a year. $150,000 a year. All he had to do was stick to his guns. Tell the truth. I went over this morning. It's how I started the day. When I first saw that clip of him, I thought, wow, truth, hope. We're not alone. You know what he's doing? He wants us to protect him. He's got it backwards. They all have it backwards. It's their job to protect us. Our rights don't come from the government. It's up to our politicians to protect our rights from themselves, from Justin Trudeau. That's really what government, when it's operating properly, is supposed to do. We're born with rights. We're born people. We're just born. And what we need to be aware of is governments that take our rights away. We need people to defend us, defend our rights, and ultimately defend us. That's what he's paid for, $150,000 plus a year. All of them. As I said this morning, the convoy, the Freedom Convoy, was the best of Canada on display. He knows it. You know it. I know it. Everybody knows it. All these bureaucrats and politicians testifying at the inquiry, they're all full of hot air. They all know it. And while they may not be committing perjury because technically they might be using words that avoid actual lies, they're not telling the truth. They're spinning their words and redefining words to fit a narrative. He knows it. For one brief shining moment, he spoke truth at a moment when it was needed. He said, this is so important for the country. And he was part of that for a moment until he felt the pressure of the authoritarian mob and he caved. And he said, I'm sorry. Oh, he had a lapse in judgment, I guess. Yeah, he spoke truth. Is that guy a leader? Is that someone you would like rely on? Does he have your back? Would you follow him into battle? Would you? There he is meeting with Ukraine's ambassador, Yulia Kovalev. That was a while back. He says, they are grateful for Canada's help, but still need better armaments for self-defense. He's pro-war, pro-war with Russia. He's like, let's give him arms. Maybe before we give the government what Mr. McDonald is supporting, more money and more weapons to send to Ukraine, we should ask ourselves, are these people honorable? Does he have integrity? Dedication. As he said that the freedom fighters in Ottawa did? Would you follow him into battle? When the chips were down, would he have your back? If you had to go to war? Well, folks, we're already at war. Overseas in Ukraine. We're at war right here at home. We're in an information war. And he knows it. He knew what was going on in the streets of Ottawa. And you know what the truth is? The people on the streets of Ottawa, the Freedom Convoy, they were fighting the war with peace, love, patriotism, bravely. He was right about that. What a shame. It's not too late, Senator McDonald, to do the right thing. It's never too late. You did the right thing when you spoke truth. But what you ended up, but it was done in a cowardly way. Off camera. Oh, you don't record me. When you thought no one was listening. That's the problem, isn't it? That's the problem. It's time. It's time to speak up, speak out, speak truth. God help us. More to come right after this.
Maverick News. Fighting for freedom.
I struggled with whether I should even run that clip because he did ask that he not be recorded. As a journalist, I would, if someone asks me to just say something off the record, I honor that. Always have. The reason I chose to run it is because it was live streamed. It's already out there, has been out there for quite a while. It's making the rounds again. It's important. It's not like I'm revealing information for the first time that hasn't been shared before. I think it's actually vital to the conversation at this point. I think it's constructive to run it again, to give people the full context of that story and to draw attention to it, especially in light of the flowery language we're getting from the bureaucrats and politicians at the inquiry, and the dodging and the strategy they're using to now run the clock out by delaying when being asked questions by Brendan Miller because they're afraid of him because he extracts so much truth that it makes them extremely uncomfortable. Is the inquiry making a difference? Yes, it is. The world is watching. The world was watching the convoy. It inspired other freedom fighters around the world to initiate other convoys and protests. It made a big difference that way. The convoy made a big difference. This inquiry is also exposing truth, and the world is watching the inquiry as well. As a result, we're getting social media influencers, streamers, big names making reference to what's going on at the inquiry. The truth there is also being exposed. As truth comes out there, it's coming out online and it's reaching millions of people. Look at this.
Unbiased fashion as these people walk down the streets of the protests and see what they experienced. Yes, even that was incredibly different than the mainstream media coverage. And now it seems like the truth of the matter is finally coming out in full detail. Anyway, let's take a look at this clip from Russell Brand.
Also, a new report has revealed that those Canadian truckers that we were told were Nazis and hairy and smelly were, wait for it, peaceful. Unfortunately, while they were doing that, they were simultaneously working class. So we should assume that they were Nazi just in case. I mean, they had a job, so that's working class, right? So that's Nazi. That's the way it works these days. Meanwhile, up a bit in a country that I, as an Englishman, consider to be basically the same, let me know in the chat, in Canada, the truckers have been proven not to have been Nazis. I feel like I saw Justin Trudeau coming on my TV set saying, they're Nazis, they're awful, they're this, they're that. Don't you remember that? I feel like people had their bank accounts frozen. Oh, these truckers. Let's have a look at what's going on. Public Safety Canada officials admitted in internal updates that the Freedom Convoy protests were peaceful and that no violence was taking place, despite claims by the minister, Marco Mendicino. These are internal documents. These are not things that should be shared with the public, because otherwise the public go, hold on, you told us they were violent Nazis. Yeah, we had to tell you that at the time because it was irritating that they were doing that protest. We thought, what could we say that people don't like? Well, no one liked violent Nazis. Oh, no, they were horrible, weren't they, the Nazis? Well, should we just say these lot are Nazis then? Well, are they Nazis? No, you're missing the point. Just say they're Nazis, but they're not Nazis. Listen, you can just say stuff and no one will ever check. They'll forget down the line. They'll forget that down the line, loads of unvaccinated people lost their job. They'll forget down the line that a load of Canadian truckers were called Nazis because they'll have moved on to something else then. Like, I don't know, it'll be a war or something. So can we just say they're Nazis? Do you mean like those Nazis in Ukraine that we're funding in the war against Russia? Oh, No, those Nazis are the not Nazis. Those are good Nazis. Wait, is it like we've got to like break Nazis down now into good Nazis and bad Nazis? Because I thought Nazi meant bad. Yeah, but the truckers are bad Nazis. Truckers bad Nazis. Ukrainian Nazis that are part of the fighting forces that are opposing Russia, Russian tyranny, good Nazis. Whew, this is confusing. Yeah, just keep concentrating on consolidating centralized global power and you won't go far wrong.
So it's getting attention. It's making a difference. It's getting the word out. It's not, we haven't won, we haven't taken back the whole country. We haven't restored freedom. We still have problems. But the inquiry is making a difference. There you go. People are paying attention. The world is watching.
Hello, world. Are you awake? Uniting humankind by liberating millions of minds at a time. Maverick News. The world is watching.
Pierre Poilievre, leader of the Conservative Party of Canada, is also watching and taking advantage of an opportunity to score some political points by saying Justin Trudeau should be calling or should have called for an investigation into China's meddling in our electoral process because of revelations from the Canadian Security Intelligence Service, CSIS, that some Canadian politicians have been taking money from the Communist Party of China. And that's a big problem. Here's Poilievre.
The Honorable Leader of the Opposition.
Today.
10 months ago, CSIS informed the Prime Minister of allegations that a foreign government had interfered in our elections with financing, illegal financing. So the Prime Minister should have informed the Chief Electoral Officer so that could be investigated.
Form the Commissioner of Canada Elections to instigate an investigation after he became aware almost 10 months ago of allegations of illegal foreign funding.
The Honorable Deputy Prime Minister.
Monsieur le Président, notre gouvernement.
Mr. Speaker, our government understands that there are dictatorships in the world that are actively trying to undermine democracies. I studied in under an authoritarian communist regime, the Soviet Union, and I have no illusions about the nature of those systems. Our national security agencies are actively monitoring the threat posed by these regimes. The Honorable Leader of the Opposition.
Well, as the world's wealthy gather for the COP conference, burning massive amounts of jet fuel to get there, what's becoming clear is that this government does not have a climate plan. They have a tax plan. Their plan has failed to reach a single solitary greenhouse gas emission target. And Canada now ranks 58th out of 64 countries on climate performance. This after they've hit Canadians with high taxes. They plan to triple the tax, tripling down on failure. Will they cancel the carbon tax and come up with a real environmental plan?
The Honorable Deputy Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, Canadians all know that this Conservative leader doesn't have a plan to tackle climate change. And that means that he doesn't have a plan to grow the Canadian economy. The reality today is that our most important trading partners, the US, the EU, are all taking serious climate action. These are our allies and these are our customers. And that is why in the fall economic statement, we invested heavily in the green transition. We're going to continue to do that, Mr. Speaker.
Leader of the opposition.
These are our allies and these are our customers, and all of them have better climate change performance than this government has here in Canada. In fact, what they've done here in Canada is raise taxes on people's energy use, energy that they must use. You do need to heat your home if you live in rural Newfoundland, and you do need to use oil to do it because that's all there is. And this winter, it is expected that will, well, it's already up 77% year over year, likely to be up further. Some families will pay as much as $6,000 to heat their homes. Wow. Is the government really going to tell them that they have to pay more for this government's failures on the environment?
The Honourable Deputy Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, Canadians understand that putting a price on pollution is the most effective way to fight climate change. And in fact, Mr. Speaker, one of the Canadians who was early to advocate this economically effective approach was none other than Preston Manning. I think it's also worth pointing out that our price on pollution is revenue neutral. All the money goes back to Canadian families. A family in Alberta is getting back more than $1,000. That's true of a family in Saskatchewan as well. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
The Honourable Leader of the Opposition.
Revenue neutral. It's not neutral for the taxpayer who will pay thousands of dollars more in the tax than they get back in any rebates, according to the government's own parliamentary budget officer. If the government really wanted to fight greenhouse gas emissions, they'd approve projects that do that. For example, there were 15 LNG projects proposed when this government took office. Not a single one has been built. The only one that is under construction was approved by the previous Conservative government, and it required subsequent governments exempt it from the carbon tax in order for it to be economical and to speed up its approval by ignoring C-69. Will the government get out of the way and let our projects go ahead to protect the earth?
The Honourable Deputy Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, our government bought and will complete the building of the Trans Mountain Pipeline. Our government absolutely understands that LNG is an important transition fuel and plays a valuable role for Canada and the world. And I do want to point out that we understand for projects to work, they have to meet environmental standards, and Indigenous people have to be consulted. That's how we're going to get projects in Canada built, including necessary renewable energy projects, Mr. Speaker.
Yep. You're the opposition.
Well, it's true that they have to meet environmental standards. We had real environmental standards under the previous Conservative government. And in fact, the only way that the LNG Canada project in Western Canada went ahead was by exempting it from the new anti-development C-69. And she's right also that First Nations have to be consulted. One of them is an Indigenous grandmother from the Haisla First Nation who told me that LNG Canada and projects like it mean that her autistic grandchild will have the resources for treatment. That means help for First Nations, paychecks for our people, and clean energy for the world. Why won't they get out of the way and let it happen?
The Honourable Deputy Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, Canadians know better than to listen to the economic advice of this Conservative leader. Let me tell you about Robert Breedlove. He's a Bitcoin trader who posted, quote, "Central banking is an institution of slavery. Burn it down." The Conservative leader, after that was posted, the Conservative leader appeared on Mr. Breedlove's YouTube channel and said he found it extremely informative. So, Mr. Speaker, I think the Conservative leader needs to publicly disavow those inflammatory comments and apologize to Canadians for his own.
The Honourable Member for Belleuil-Chambly. Mr. Speaker, the shortfall in the Quebec healthcare system is to the tune of $6 billion.
And that was the exchange between Poilievre and Canada's Deputy Prime Minister, Chrystia Freeland, today, starting with the exchange over China's meddling in Canada's electoral process. And that is not some conspiracy. That's straight from Canada's top intelligence and security agency, CSIS. I think there's a lot more to that than meets the eye. When we come back, we're going to talk about a new poll that sheds new light on drag queen story time.
Fighting the Great Reset by leading the Great Resistance. Maverick News. The antivirus programs for your mind.
Okay, so there's a new poll out from Rasmussen, and it says a strong majority of Americans, it's a U.S. poll, condemn drag queen story time. According to the poll, the majority of Americans think drag queen story time is inappropriate for children. Mark Mitchell, who is the head pollster at Rasmussen, says that question had riled up about the most hate in any survey they've ever conducted, emphasizing the fury amongst Americans the issue has caused in recent years. They polled 1,000 Americans and asked how appropriate they thought it was that drag queen story time even existed. So if you don't know what drag queen story time is, well, you know, it's men dressed as women reading stories to young children, drag queens. This goes on in public libraries, in schools, to primary graders, young kids. Many believe this is an attempt to, I guess, engage in social engineering by exposing young kids to LGBTQ plus culture. And I guess it's good to have a tolerant attitude toward people, but I don't know, man. This has sexual content, and this involves young kids. And that's why the majority of people, I think, in the poll were strongly opposed to the idea, to the practice, because it's going on right now. The poll found 44% of Americans thought it was not at all appropriate for children. Another 16% said it's not very appropriate. 10% said they weren't sure. 11% of voters thought it was very appropriate for children, and 28% said they thought it was somewhat appropriate. Opinion is split, but the majority strongly opposed to it. We have a video with Mark Mitchell of Rasmussen talking about this. I'm going to run part of that for you right now. Here we go. Here's Mark Mitchell.
This edition of Others Won't Ask This, we're broaching a topic that riled up about the most hate in any survey I've seen. So to everyone who left nasty voicemails, I apologize. But sometimes we just have to ask uncomfortable questions. Now, before I start, let's just check Google to make sure the claim I'm about to make is correct. Drag queen polls, drag queen public support, drag queen public opinion. Okay, I actually looked for quite a while for this, and maybe it's just a Google thing, but I really can't find any polling on this topic. Pretty much all I'm seeing are articles defending drag queen story hours and making fun of conservative pearl clutchers. So it looks like this is definitely a first time. And here we go. Many public libraries in America now host Drag Queen Story Hour, in which men dressed as women perform for young children. How appropriate for children are such events? 30% of adults say they're appropriate, and only 11% say very appropriate. 60%, however, say not appropriate, 44% of whom say not at all appropriate. 10% say not sure, which is actually pretty common for a question like this because some people don't want to be judgmental or they just hear the topic and nope out. I think the demographics here are worth examining in fine detail. Women are a few points more permissive than men on this, and younger adults are way more permissive than older people. 46% of 18 to 39-year-olds think these events are at least somewhat appropriate, and only 23% say not at all appropriate. Conversely, 61% of those over 65 say not at all appropriate. Among people under 40, again, women are more permissive than men. But what about race? There isn't actually too much difference. Black adults are less likely to say these events are very appropriate, but Hispanic and other races are more likely to say that they're not at all appropriate. But here's political party. Only 17% of Republicans and 22% of independents say at least somewhat appropriate, and Republicans are 8 times more likely to say not at all appropriate as say very appropriate. Although independents are almost equally as likely to not think drag queen story hours are appropriate, they are less likely than Republicans to totally write them off, with only 45% of independents saying they're not at all appropriate, though it is still 6 times as many as say they're very appropriate. But look at that Democrat line, however. A near majority of Democrats, 48%, say they're at least somewhat appropriate, of which a good 19% say very appropriate. Only 22% of Democrats say not at all appropriate. Seriously, pause the video and examine this slide and tell me what it means to you in the comments. Drag Queen Story Hour seems like a topic that has been heavily championed by the left, and yet it can't get to a majority of support among Democrats. But at the same time, Democrats are just not willing to condemn the practice in large numbers. Here's some data about the other demographics. Though you might consider this kind of topic a luxury belief, there really isn't much variation across income. Government employees are the most understanding of drag queens, and retired people the least. And believe it or not, it doesn't matter much whether a respondent was a parent, grandparent, or neither. With those who were, only 14% more likely to say that story hours were not at all appropriate than those who aren't parents or grandparents. We also asked if taxpayer money should be spent on drag queen story hours, and the results were a resounding no by a 5-to-1 margin. We rarely see that much agreement on politicized topics like this. The most likely demographic to say yes was Democrats, but among them, no still outnumbered yes by 56% to 22%, or about 2.5 to 1. Was this video informative for you? Do you like having at least someone out there asking questions that others won't? If so, please like this video and subscribe.
And there you go. And you can check that out at Rasmussen Polls. And I think that sheds new light on a topic that has been top of mind for a lot of people over the last year. And I think the story about the teacher with the gigantic prosthetic breasts is another story that has sort of converged with this one to ring alarm bells for people. And, you know, for me, I'm cool with drag queens. I'm cool with whatever, man. It's just, for me, I just don't think that kind of stuff is appropriate in schools, especially elementary schools with really young kids. I just don't get it, because to me, an element of sexualization to it, which is not appropriate for very young kids, and it's just not. It's sexualized entertainment, which is not what we should be putting into our schools. Not in my opinion. Not in my opinion, not at all. And thank you very much, David, for the $25 super chat. Greatly appreciate that. Super helpful. Thank you, thank you, thank you. That'll help keep the lights on here for at least another day. I'll take a brief break. We'll go back to the phones briefly because I know some callers are kind of left hanging there earlier. So if you want to call back, you can do that. I can't go too much longer. Got to walk my dog soon. He's feeling a little neglected, and I do love him. So stay with me, and we'll go to the phones.
Fighting the Great Reset by leading the Great Resistance. Maverick News. The antivirus programs for your mind.
Okay, the phone line is set up. I'll play the video with all the info you need, so you'll know how to call in.
Join the conversation. Call 1-833-975-3733. That's 1-833-975. Free. Speak up. Speak out. Make your voice heard. Maverick News. Fighting for freedom by defending your right to free speech. Be a Maverick. Join us.
Okay, I'm back, and I just wanted to mention as well, because we got that super chat, it reminded me, someone did try to send an e-transfer. When that happens, sometimes it goes to spam, so I have to search in there to find them. And if you do want to donate by e-transfer, you can do that, and I'll put this up here. At that email address, maverickmultimedia@mail.com, not Gmail. I think that might be why this other person had some trouble. I'm not sure yet because I didn't see it come through. They messaged and asked, and it's not there as far as I can see. Might be. I'll find it later. But maverickmultimedia@mail.com is the email to send an e-transfer to, or to contact me. You can reach me there as well. I try to get through them. There's just so many emails. Not Gmail, just mail.com. And if you do send an e-transfer, just use the word Maverick, Maverick, all lowercase, as the security password to assign to it. That way, instead of trying to send me a different password, everybody's sending me different passwords, it'll just simplify the entire process. So if you send that to me, to the business email account right there, maverickmultimedia@mail.com, and then use that password, Maverick, then we should get it. That's the way to get it. through that way if you are more comfortable using e-transfer, as many people are. We do still have the donation pages available at freedomreporters.com and also at maverickdonations.com. That takes you to the Give, Send, Go donation page. And thank you, everyone who is here supporting the channel. Thank you, Maverick family, for supporting the channel. It just can't say thank you enough. That super chat, extremely helpful. So with that being said, time to go back to the phones. The phone lines are open. You can call in at 1-833-975-3733. That's 1-833-975-3733. And we'll see who the first caller is on the line. It's Pam, one of our regulars from BC. Hello, how are you?
Sir Richard, congratulations on your new knighthood.
Thank you. Have you been? I don't think you've been knighted yet, have you?
Oh no, and can you really knight a female?
Yes, you can. And I looked it up. And the proper the proper term for a female knight is a dame, apparently. So
oh yes, I know. My mother hated that term.
Yes. Well, we don't mean it in a pejorative or a negative way, as you know, these dames, not like that.
I know. I do have past dame ancestors, but oh well. If that must be the way, then that must be the way, mustn't it?
What's on your mind tonight?
I love you. Well, I'm phoning in because I just saw that thing that you just did on was it Michael L. McDonald, right? And I didn't know even who he was until you aired him tonight. And you're right. You know, if someone says, "Oh, if this is off the record," you don't show it. But I mean, if it's already shown and it's already public news, and there's no proof that it was off the record, then it's on the record, right?
Yeah, that's
so,
right.
now that that's on the record, it's really distressing to see how that guy became so wussy-like and capitulated to apologizing. And obviously, his wife is maybe upset and feeling insecure about his working position and their lovely income and their future in these tough times. And but I just think that he's bearing false witness because he's sounding one way and then he's capitulating and speaking another way by apologizing. And people should not have to apologize for their true convictions. So he's weak, very, very weak.
Yep.
And you're right. We're looking at people like that as being our leaders, and those are not good leaders. When they weaken like that, and if he even looked up his family history, there was a great Canadian singer. He was a tenor, and he went in. I think his name was Ian McDermott, and he did a song called "The Battle of Glencoe." Well, that McDonald clan was pretty much wiped out. Only a few survived, and if he is from that clan, then he should know what they went through, and he should look up his history and stand by his ancestors and what they went through, just like we're going through right now. Because there are certain clans, they were wiped out by, I think it was the Campbell clan of the area. But, it's just people just got to stop capitulating and apologizing for their convictions that they feel strongly about and that they know are more truthful, yet they keep apologizing because they're fearing of what they may lose on this earth, on this earthly plane. And when you give, you have two ways to go: either worship God or worship Mammon. And Mammon means worshiping things of this earth, and everybody will have to pay for that one day.
He's 67 years old. He's made his mark in the world. My guess is he has a crap load of money in the bank, investments, and he could just quit working right now and be set for life. He could resign as a senator and still be well off. What does he have to lose?
He had, you're right. He had an incredible opportunity to stand up and really become a very true leader, but he capitulated. And that's why I'm saying he's where is the strength of people nowadays? Everybody's capitulating to this demonic spiritual war that's going on, or whatever it is, but they're just capitulating to please those around them, and they have no inner strength, no inner character.
A huge disappointment, but
it is.
As I said, it's never too late to do the right thing.
So, now, if I'm going to be a dame or dam, like damsel in distress. Okay, here's the other thing that I feel like I have to give back. I can't give back financially because I've lost my job, and my business. I got a job after that and got laid off there too. So I'm pretty much down enough now. I'm barely surviving. But what I did want to say is I'm at the brink where I have a lot of business skills, and I think that we need to form a community where and get people to come together, and I'd help steer that, and help get other people to steer with me on a committee, and try and set up things where we can help people find other people who are hiring the people like us, let's just say, and get a creative thing going where we can form a group that will go somewhere in the very near future, because there's a lot of people that are suffering right now.
Okay. Well,
okay,
that sounds good. We need more discussion on that. So what I would suggest is, we don't have time to dig into that too deeply right here, right now, but you've seen my email address there, right? That I put up on the screen just a few minutes ago.
I have gone to, let me write this down, or like I've been attacked so many times on my computer because I had a corporation, and man, I just got one attack. I've had to change my email so many times and everything else. But I do have one good server where that email has been protected. So, but I did want to warn your subscribers also. Yesterday, I received an email from the government. It said from the CRA, and it was an email because I saw a news report where they were giving back GST checks, and because I'm financially struggling right now, they said they were going to double up on the GST returns. So I pressed it, and it got me in, and they got me into what looked identically to the Royal Bank, and to deposit the money, and then it asked for my SIN number and all these things, and then I just felt something was fishy, but I'd already pressed the button, and so I phoned the bank right away, and they put an investigation on it. But because I gave my SIN number, now I've got to phone Equifax and all these different credit agencies, because somebody could be stealing my ID.
Yeah,
so be very careful.
You know what? Do you know what I do when I get something like anything like that? I look at the email address it came from.
I did, and it looked legit. I went online and it looked legit. It was.
If you look at if you look at the email address, it always has to be like the name of the company, and then it's going to be like a .com. So if it's got like something other than what would be like the main email address for the company, with maybe like a / to a page, but it's got to be like, if it's RBC, Royal Bank of Canada, it'd be like rbc.com or something like that. But it's got to.
Well, it came up. It came up. You know, when you get an email transfer, and it automatically, it will usually go to your main bank. But if you have other bank accounts, it doesn't go, like the little icon on when you get the email. But then it says send to another bank. So if you have a second bank account somewhere else, like with the credit union or the TD or whatever, then you go down to the bottom and you click on that, and then it takes you to the screen where you've got all the banks in Canada and you click on your bank.
Yeah.
And I've done it that way for years. And for years I've been doing this. And but all of a sudden I did it yesterday, and I clicked on RBC on the same icon that I always click on this same thing.
Yeah.
And then all this stuff came up, and I thought, oh well, maybe, you know, Revenue Canada or CRA is changing their strategy because of changing technology. And
yeah, well, they're getting better and better at fooling people, right? Like these scam artists. So you just have to be very, very careful. But Pam, we got to move on. But before we do that, I do want to knight you. So are you ready?
Oh, thank you, sweetheart. Oh, Earl of Walker. Thank you so much, darling.
Here we go.
Yeah, I love it.
Here we go.
Okay. No worries.
We, the Maverick family, do hereby dub thee an official Maverick Knight, freedom fighter extraordinaire. May your courage and devotion to freedom and truth become a shining example to the people of our world and the Maverick universe. Maverick News. The world is watching.
Thank you, Sir Pam.
Well, Sir Lady. Oh God, I'm a transgender now.
Lady Pam. I don't know.
Sir Lady Pam. I guess it would be Sir Lady Pamela Darling. Yes, Sir Lady Pamela Darling.
Thank you for calling in tonight.
Yeah.
You made me smile.
All right.
Great call. Thank you. Thank you. Talk to you again soon. Bye.
Bye-bye.
All right. Here's John. Hello, John.
Hey, hi, Rick. Can you hear me? Hang on.
I can hear you.
There we go. I think the volume was down on my phone. Yeah, she was talking about, you should never press any button on your phone. The bank never calls you. The government never calls you. That's all done by mail or in person, but they don't. That's fraud.
Yeah, just got to be careful. There are ways to detect it, but you just have to educate yourself and learn how to recognize it.
The other night I was at the Nickelback private party there. There was like 80 people there, just intimate. I asked Chad, I said, you ever been into San Quentin? That song he does is it's the oldest jail in California. He says, no, never been there, but I was at a party in California, and there was a guy next to me, and I started talking to him, young guy, and I asked him what he did for a living. He said he was the warden at San Quinto, California. You look kind of young to me, eh?
Mm-hmm.
I said, really? I said, you ever been in jail? He says, no, but I've done white collar crime. He says, Canada is the only place in the world you can get away. I used to cash other people's GST checks. And when I was younger, he says, I used to cash. He says, it's perfectly legal. You can cash anyone's GST check. So the bank called me in, and he says, did you cash this check and this check and this check? I said, yeah. He goes, can you sign right here, please? And I said, am I going to jail? He goes, no, just sign right here. He goes, you going to call the cops on me? He goes, no, you're free to go. Anyways, so next time, Yeah, if you need money, just go around, collect people's GST. Well, they don't do that no more. Now they direct deposit, eh? So I guess they must have caught on. Okay, forget about that stuff. It's a long day, Rick. You need a smile. It's a long day.
Yeah.
I was watching TV tonight, and it was a woman, size 13 feet, probably the biggest foot on a woman in record. I don't know. And they showed the woman, size 13 feet. Her shoes have to be custom made, eh?
Okay.
We should look her up. Take her to Ottawa. We'll get some customized 13 size boots made for her, and she can go up to Trudeau, give him a 13 size boot where the sun don't shine, and kick him right out of Ottawa. What do you think?
Well, I don't know. Is that woman supposed to have the biggest feet in the world, or some world record or something?
I don't know. They're probably one of the biggest. Like she says, she can't buy shoes or anything. She has to get everything's got to be custom made for her. So they got to be big.
Interesting.
13. She was a tall woman, mind you. And
well, I have pictures up here on screen showing a lot of women with size 13 feet. So she's not alone.
She's not alone. Anybody on the chat here with 13 size feet? There you go. We need someone to boot Trudeau right out of Ottawa. We got to get a woman to do it. So, it won't be that bad. Yeah.
Wow. Size 13 feet.
Kick him where the sun don't shine.
What was her name? Cinderella?
I don't know what her name was. No, Cinderella. Yeah, really. Imagine. Well, I got 13 or 14. My feet are pretty big too.
Am I getting in trouble for laughing about the woman with the size 13 feet? Is that politically incorrect? Are we in dangerous territory?
Cindy wears 5.5. She's got tiny feet. 5.5. I don't like big feet on a woman, but Kimberly's 5'7", 5'11", size 10. That's a average size, I guess. For 5'11", she's tall woman. Anyhow, there's on the news tonight. There was a follow up on that guy you played who was gonna end it because he was homeless.
Yeah.
Somebody put up a GoFundMe page on the guy. He raised over $40,000. Did you hear about that?
No, I didn't hear about that.
Yeah, it was on tonight's news. He raised over. He had to end it because he's on disability, and after 40,000, if you make any more, you get cut off. So he says, "That's it, cut it off." But he's got $40,000 in the bank, and he can stay where he is now until housing comes up for him.
Well, that's a very positive thing, and hopefully that saves his life.
Yeah, he was happy. You can see it. But it was on tonight's, I don't know, City TV, the news on City TV. You probably find it on their website.
Well, see, I'm a little behind on that because I've been so busy watching the inquiry. It's very difficult to watch that start to finish and prepare other material for the day. For the evening broadcast like this, right? It's hard. But oops, hang on a sec here. I took you off screen. Just a second, John. I need to bring you back up. Oh, here we go. There you go. You're back.
Hear me now?
Yep.
Nobody can hear me now?
You can hear you. Yeah. Now you can tell us what you really think.
Okay, forget about it now. I want to tell you something in private, but it's okay. I wanted to tell you something in private, but it's okay. You got me back on live, eh? All right, forget it.
It's all on the record, my friend.
Well, yesterday, I also on the radio heard we hit the 8 billion people mark on this planet.
Oh,
8 billion yesterday.
Uh-huh.
I did some research today. There's 45 million in Ukraine. 45 million people in Ukraine. Canada's got 40, just almost 40 million. And there's 1.5 million Ukraine in Canada. I think we got the largest population of Ukraine in the world.
Yeah, outside of Ukraine itself. Yep. I believe that's true.
Yeah.
And a lot of them are in Alberta, from what I understand.
Yeah, a lot of them are, that's right. In Saskatchewan, yes.
Yep.
Nothing against them. They're hardworking people. But the reason why I say that is last night I was listening to Coast to Coast, and there was a guy on there informing us about Ukraine, and he had an interview with Putin. Putin's plan is the winter's coming in Ukraine right now. He wants to knock out all the infrastructure, all the power, water. He wants them to freeze. So the 45 million people are going to leave Ukraine. And they're all going to go to Europe. They're going to go to everywhere. And what he's going to do is flood European countries and probably Canada too. And they can't handle the infrastructure. When you got 45 million people and they got to get the hell out of Dodge because there's no water, no light, no nothing, right? You'd be like Elon Musk there last night with the candles, you know, trying to keep warm.
Okay.
Maybe Musk knows something. You know, you'd be like him. So he wants to flood the 45 million people into Europe, and their infrastructure can't handle it. The economy is gonna crumble, and we'll probably get a lot of them here in Canada. It's going to hurt our economy. Who's going to pay for it? It's not cheap. The good thing about Canada is we got 1.5. I was thinking, doing the math, we got 1.5 million. So a lot of them are family. They can house them because they're related, you know. But I don't know. This is Putin's plan for the winter, and that's what he wants to do. And also, this really blew my mind. Putin says in Russia they have the biggest Orthodox church in the world, and they're real Christian, real Orthodox. Like they worship the church like nobody's business in Russia. He says if we all die, we all go to heaven. NATO's going to hell, he says. This is Putin saying this. And if we get nuked from NATO or Ukraine, he says he's going after Washington, New York, England. He's going to wipe everybody out. He says, we're going to heaven. We'll be wiped out here. We'll go into heaven, but they're all going to hell. Scary thoughts. I don't know if you can dig that up somewhere, but
we ran it on the show already. It was a while ago.
Oh, the same thing?
Yep.
Okay.
Yeah, it was part of a speech.
Yeah, it's I don't know. The more we bend over, the more they get away with. So we have to hold them to the fire, right?
Hold their feet to the fire.
Yeah, like
even if they're size 13.
That's gonna be like hard to do, but like Cotton Schwab, that video that was good. You played that video.
Or how about feet like this? Remember, these are you know, I think it's Chinese women with bound feet. To make their feet small, right?
Yeah.
Just made me think of that.
They wear, when they're young, they get these really shoes and their toes are all crushed in there.
Mm-hmm.
And as the feet grow, they don't grow because the shoe, and that's how they get small feet.
Yeah.
You know that? Did you know that?
Yeah, and they wrap them up in like a kind of like a bandage, kind of like with fabric to
Yes.
keep their feet from growing. And
They don't want big feet in China, eh?
Yeah.
Chinese, Japanese.
I guess it's a, it's a cultural thing, right? I just can't imagine that. It's got to be. I would think it must be very painful when you get. I just don't know. I remember talking about it or being taught about it in elementary school. That's just something that came back in my memory when you were talking about the size 13 feet. Well, here's the other end of the spectrum. But
there's another one out. Like you read books?
No, I don't know how to read, John.
You don't have time to read books.
I don't know how to read.
A lot of books. There was well, some people read books like this. Anybody out there wants to read a good book? She was on Coast to Coast last night. Her name is Patricia Corey, Corri. Patricia Corey, and she's a freedom fighter. I'm telling you.
Mm-hmm.
And she said one thing interesting that I like. She says that Cotton Swab, he wants to remove our soul and replace it with 666.
Yeah.
And they're working on the kids in school. Like the schools, they're corrupting all the kids. They want them to microchip all these kids so they can play video. They're gonna to play video games. So they're gonna bribe them. You get microchip. You can play these video. Suck them in. It's crazy. So
they're gonna microchip the kids so they can play video games.
Yeah, see how they suck you in, just like
So what are they gonna do? Like they're gonna chip your kid and then put like a port into the back of their neck and run a cable out to the TV or something, and then they could just sit
put them
there
in your hand or something. I don't know. It's in her book, Patricia Corey. This is what Cotton Swab wants to do.
These people are insane. Even Elon Musk, man, he wants to get everybody jacked in too.
She don't trust Elon Musk. She said, I don't trust
Elon Musk either. Not for 1 minute.
She's a very interesting person, man. I tell you, she was on for 2 hours, and I listened to her. Actually, I recorded it. That's how I'm gonna listen to it again because it's kind of late. But she said the decision we make determines the future, right? So if we all stand up and fight for our right, like what we're doing, like what the truckers did, they determine our future. Because what they did right now, it caused volumes all over the world. Well, you know that. And it changed the future. And if you don't stand up for your right, like these chips, she says, don't ever get chipped. Because once they chip you, we're done here. We're done. They're going to control us. So we'll be like robots. It's bad enough with the synthetic thing they're giving us. It's synthetic. Don't get that, she said. She lives in an island. She lives in an island around Portugal somewhere. She does not, and she's from the States, but she wants nothing to do with this. She moved to an island. There's like 100 people there. That's what she said. There's anybody on the island.
See, I'd like to live in a place like that. Yeah.
She doesn't want to use GPS or anything electronic because they monitor you. Everything you're doing, like right now, we're being monitored on the phone, obviously. But
you know why I don't trust Elon Musk? I've got a picture up right now from a news story about, like, here's another example, okay? These celebrities, these elite people, they engage in all these satanic rituals. They really do.
Oh, yeah.
And here's Elon Musk at Heidi Klum's Halloween party, and he was wearing a satanic costume worth $7,500.
Yeah.
There's images of him posted on social media wearing it. And this is a guy who, you know, he wants to turn us into cyborgs. He wants to integrate the human mind into the digital universe of the metaverse, right?
Yeah, yeah.
Beware. Be careful, folks.
That guy you got on your show there that comes on, he's a good, cool guy. He probably knows a lot about that guy.
Which guy? Which guy comes on the show?
That guy who comes, he did a good one. The guy who calls it the Kool-Aid. Yeah, he was on there last week. I forget his name. You know, the guy.
Like he phones in, or he's on the show?
He's on your show.
I don't know.
Got all those
people. I don't know what you're talking about, and we don't have a lot of people on the show.
The guy's into witch. He's into witches. Into witchcraft.
Brian Howell.
Brian, yeah, he probably knows a lot. He probably knows a lot about this guy.
Yeah, probably does. He's working on a few things himself, so he'll be back on. Yeah.
Yeah.
He's got a thing coming up this weekend. So yeah.
What's that?
He's got a thing coming up this weekend with Matthew Good. So I think he's going to do something about that. Anyway, I don't want to give away the whole story. I don't want to steal his thunder.
No.
So he's working on something. And we have Scott Ritter, the former UN weapons inspector. He's coming back on next week.
That's going to be.
Yeah, I messaged him. He's so gracious and so generous with his time, and really, I'm so grateful to have him on.
I like that guy.
Yeah,
I like that guy.
We need him, and a lot of people have been asking for him to come back and share information with us and provide some new context and perspective on what's going on over in Ukraine. We need that right now. So I'm really looking forward to that.
He's got a lot of the inside information, the scoop. He gets it somewhere. I don't know.
Yep.
He knows where to get it.
Yeah, he's got the connections.
He got the connection. Yeah,
and he knows how to read the situation because he's knowledgeable. He's educated. He knows his history. He has the experience. He was involved. He knows. He's an expert.
Yeah, that guy's good. Yeah.
Yeah. So extremely valuable.
Another thing that Nickelback, Chad, I said to him, you know, you should talk to Elon Musk. He's got Twitter. He doesn't know what to do with it. You should start up a program on there where you can sell music. Forget about the other music, the iTunes and stuff. They rip you off. You can sell songs on Twitter. Talk to Musk, and every song you swell, you can give Elon Musk a nickel back. He goes, I don't know, that guy's too busy. He says, that guy's too busy. Yeah.
There, I've got some pictures of Nickel. So you met the guys from Nickelback?
Oh yeah, I got pictures of arm around them and all kinds of. Oh, they're cool dudes. They're the biggest Canadian act in Canada. You know that?
Yeah, I guess they are. Yeah.
They're big, yeah, and they performed. I'm telling you, really, it was really good show. It was a really good. But I went 2 nights. The first night, it was just like a members club. There's only like 80 people there. The place holds like 2,800 people.
Mm-hmm.
The second night was just jam packed. Nobody met him that night. I don't think, but. It was good. We got really. I got lucky there on that show, but I got a lot of. There's Nickelback there, yeah. very much.
Yeah. So nice guys, were they?
They're from Alberta.
Well, there you go. They're nice guys automatically then.
Alberta. Yeah, they're nice guys, and they very friendly. Like I said, I went right up to them. Two guys, I got my arm around both of them, over their shoulders. No problem with COVID or nothing, you know. No masks, I thought you had to wear masks, but no.
Yeah. Well, I went to the post office at the Shoppers Drug Mart today. Half the people in the place wearing masks again. I took count.
Yeah.
I took a
noticed.
survey.
Yeah. I noticed a lot of people wearing them now.
Yep.
I don't wear them because they don't really work. And my little nephew, I called him up today, and he's in grade. He actually plays hockey. He's just a little guy, and him and his brother. I said, don't ever let them chip you like a dog. I said, don't let them chip you like a dog. I said, is your dog chipped? He goes, nope. Well, don't let them chip you like a dog.
That's right.
Because I'm telling you, these teachers today, we're not getting good education at all. Like they want 50% raise, and the education is lousy. What we're getting today, you know. When I was a kid, when you were a kid, the education was better. Now the education has just gone downhill now.
Oh yeah, it sucks. It's not even really education anymore.
No.
Yeah, there's chips for dogs right there on the screen.
Chips for dogs.
Chips for dogs.
Yeah, well, that's what Cotton Swab wants to do to you.
Yep. Well, that's exactly
Cotton
the way
Swab.
I've been thinking of it for a long time. Our government wants to treat us like a pet.
Yeah.
Like we're a dog. You think about it, that's exactly how they want to treat us.
And once they do that, they were also talking about the synthetic thing that they give you. If there's any way to get it out of your system, right?
Yeah. Good luck.
And she said there's some smart people working on it, trying to find a way to get it out of your system.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Well,
but
I have my doubts that it's possible, but once it's in you, I don't think it's...
She also said about Pfizer, like, you know, they released like 1,000 pages of all side effects and everything.
Mm-hmm.
I think you started getting into it, but you stopped. I guess you got your reasons, but
yeah,
she said
I can only talk about
the
so
truth's
much
coming
anymore.
out. No, but she says the truth's coming out. So,
yep.
So that's another thing. People should. She says that people should just learn how to do their due diligence.
Yeah, I don't know if Jerry's still on. I see him in the chat. Sailor Jerry. You know, I want to show people something here that he sent in. So I hope he's still watching. I've done this actually a couple of times now because he sent me a drawing. And I just want to share it with people because it's really awesome. And I'm going to put it up every once in a while anyway. Let me just find it here. So this is what Sailor Jerry sent. Where did the picture go? Hang on, I'll find it. It's got to be up here. It is. So he sent in this. Sailor Jerry made this.
Jerry Swallow. Sailor Jerry Swallow. He's on there.
Yeah. Yeah. So he sent this picture.
What
Great cartoon. So that's a depiction of me. I don't know why I have a big red nose.
Oh, he drew that up?
Yeah, he drew that and emailed it
very,
to me.
Very, very good. Oh, yeah.
Isn't
Sir
that
John.
awesome? Yeah.
Who's that? Who's Sir John?
I think probably John Rimby out in Alberta, I think.
Yeah.
So,
very, very good. He's a good cartoonist, man.
Yeah, he's very good, isn't he? So I really appreciate him sending that in.
Sailor Jerry.
Yes.
Yeah, he's good. He's good. I don't know what he does for a living, but He should be a cartoonist there.
Yes,
He's
he
really
should.
good at it.
He'd be a great political cartoonist. He definitely
Yeah,
would be.
he can make a lot of money off of that.
Yep.
There's not too many good ones left. There used to be one good on the Sun. Toronto Sun had a good cartoonist, but he's retired.
Yeah.
I don't think there's anybody left. Yeah.
Yeah.
I used to like the cartoons in the paper. I used to like those.
Yeah, me too.
But hey,
I love those things. But anyway, we're getting on.
Yeah, I gotta
It's
get
10:30 at night. I think we better wrap her up here.
Yeah, you take care of yourself. Get some rest.
Okay, I'm gonna
Nice
take.
talking to you.
Thank you, John. Appreciate it. We're gonna take one last call from Maddie for tonight.
Okay.
Here we go. I know you've been waiting for a little while there. How are you tonight?
Oh, no, I know. It's okay. You've been waiting to get out of there too, so I won't keep you. I won't keep you long. But I seen something today that kind of just rubbed me the wrong way. So I had to call. So, and it's about the military, right? Well, not the military, but it's about one of them is about Danny Fontaine. Have you heard about that? He's a major general, and he's up on charges, right? But the one thing that got me was that they put an order in that he can't wear his uniform and his medals into court, but he can wear his medals and his uniform into court if he's taking a stand for the government, right?
Uh-huh.
And it really ticked me off because this guy is a major general, so he's got like 10 medals. Whether you're innocent or you're guilty or whatever, I think you should be able to wear your uniform to defend yourself. And with 10 medals on your chest, he's done some good things. He's Army, he's been in a long time. And like I said, I think you should be able to wear your medals, And then, of course, this is coming in effect December the 1st. And then if he wants to wear his uniform into court, he has to apply, say, hey, can I wear my uniform? And, it just ticks me off. You got, uniforms now, you can wear long earrings. You can wear your hair down to your butt if you're a guy. It's just, to me, it's just so disrespectful to the uniform, period.
Mm-hmm.
So that was my beef on, seriously, right? To go into court these times that he's gone into trial, and then, like I said, all of a sudden it doesn't look good, right? Because of course, you're on trial maybe for something that somebody else is accusing you of. You're not even proven guilty, but they want to strip your uniform off, with 10 medals across his chest. It really ticks me off.
Yeah.
And then the other thing is with Jeremy McKenzie, right? I'm from the East Coast too, right? So I listen to Jeremy's podcast and stuff. But you know what really got me the other day? I was thinking, it's like, geez, man, they can go into court, they can show all the clips of what shit they think he did or all the bad stuff, but they haven't listened to shows where he's on there just pleading with vets that have so much PTSD that they want to take their lives. You don't hear about all the taking of the lives through all of this. That's not blasted on friggin' CTV News or anything like that, right? But I've heard a couple of shows where one guy died and he's on there. Listen, pleading, guys, there's people out there. You can come talk to this channel, my channel, anytime at all. I have all the time in the world. Like my husband was on the Halifax and was the first ship that diverted to after 9/11 to Afghanistan. So I know I lived with PTSD. I'm a vet myself, but the thing is, you don't hear the good, all you see is the bad. And I just wanted to get it out there that, hey, this guy is not what they're playing him as, right? He's got a big heart. And like I said, definitely 100% behind the troops for PTSD and just saying this, and it's not worth it. We've all gone through it. And it's like, hey, it's not worth taking your life for, right? So I just wanted to get it out there that, what you see is not always who's behind those eyes that you're looking at, right? The softer side is definitely in there for sure. So yeah, it's kind of crazy, right?
I agree,
I think
and yeah, we need to show these vets some real compassion and empathy.
Yes, and like you say, you know, if you're good enough to go and fight wars and defend your country, like I said, it's different wars now and stuff, but you still have people standing up, like Jeremy, like, you know, Danny, like anybody that wears a uniform, like, you know, to strip that away from them and say, no, you're not allowed to wear your uniform. And the medals that you deserve, that you earned for doing hard work, you're not getting all them medals for nothing, right?
Yeah.
Like you got to get them the hard way, right? So to take that away and say, hey, look, you know, to walk into the courtroom in your uniform with your medals and say, look, you know, this is who I am. And I'm not saying, like I said, man, guilty or not guilty, it doesn't even matter. But, you know, to strip that away from them, that's pretty dishonorable in my view, for sure.
I agree. Thank you for the call tonight. Greatly appreciate it.
Sounds good. Thanks a million, man. Seriously, Rick, I'm really glad you opened this show. It's a good place for everybody to vent that had no place to vent. And you know, you can't talk to your family. So it's like, oh my gosh, we got people that think the same way. You're not crazy. You.
Yeah. Well,
okay, buddy.
thank you. You have a great night. We'll be back.
I really appreciate it.
We'll be back tomorrow.
I'll be there.
All right. Take care. Bye for now.
Okay, buddy. Thanks.
Yeah, because the adventure on the island of misfit toys continues when we come back tomorrow morning at 9 a.m. Eastern Standard, as our coverage of the inquiry into the use of the Emergencies Act continues. And before we sign off tonight, there was a quote, or you know, that came to mind for me as we were talking about this story involving Senator McDonald. And it's something that I think all of our politicians and bureaucrats and well-paid senators, and especially Mr. McDonald, might be reminded of tonight as I sign off. And that quote is simply this. I mean, you spoke truth. It was clearly the truth. And then apologized because you felt the pressure. And like all the other swamp creatures, you apologized to protect your attachments to your earthly pleasures. But remember this, and take this to heart, as I plead with all of you out there to do the right thing. It's never too late. Just remember this saying, for what shall it profit a man if he shall gain the whole world and lose his own soul?
This has been a Maverick Multimedia production.